Hi guys. This is my first time doing one of these, but I only have the technology to use my phone. So Sean here doing a solo draft analysis. Won't be as pretty or neat as the ones we've done in the past, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents because I have an hour drive to work and I'm up in the middle of the night with a baby, so I have all the time in the world to stare at a spreadsheet. So I am using the Team Burb spreadsheet. I've plugged in everybody's teams and I'm just going to methodically go through them bit by bit over my drives to work and my midnights with the baby until I've made my way through all of them, however long that might take. I think everyone had a really cool draft, and I don't think there is a single dud among the whole group. I feel like everyone drafted really scary stuff this season. I think people have gotten very good at draft over the years and seasons now that we're in the 20s. But even our newer people like Riz and Photon have like crazy good drafts. So I mean, I am excited for the season. And with no further ado, we can get into it. I'm just going through in the order in which we drafted. So first up is Liam with the Necrozmas. Um, this is an interesting team. I think we can all agree Mega Scizor is a menace. It's offensive, it's defensive, it's a great thing to build a team around. It can roost up. It can be a real, nightmare to get rid of if you can't get some of those key weaknesses hit. And I think he built a very solid Fairy Dragon Steel around it with Hydreigon and Sylveon. I think both are personal favorites of mine. Hydreigon, I think it can do a lot. It can be utility, it can be offense specially, or it can be offense physically, not as well, but it's still got stats for it. It even is bulky enough that it can do some defensive work with Levitate and a Dark typing. 2 immunities is nothing to sneeze at. Sylveon's Pokemon we've all discussed a lot. I personally think it is worth the tier it's in. I think it's better than most fairies, and most of the constraint is just, did you give it the team to do the thing it needs to do? It's one of the few fairies that has fire coverage. There's a lot of things that can otherwise wall its contemporaries, like Florges and stuff like that, but then this thing shoots at Mystical Fire, and suddenly, instead of being a 5-hit KO, it's a 2-hit KO, or a 3. And that is not an insignificant factor. Also, I like the Fire, Water, Grass core here. It's kind of like sometimes you see them all oriented physically, or some of them all oriented for offense, or all oriented for defense, and I feel like this one's more of a mix. Keldeo, obviously, a really good breaker. Our league, historically, has not done much with it before. It's not been drafted very widely. It's been drafted a handful of times. So I still think there's a lot of potential there to unlock, and I'm excited to see if the Necrozmas can do it. Arcanine, this is a league favorite. It's top 5 drafted ever. It's got great abilities. It can be a kind of fire immunity. It can do Intimidate, and I think we all know how valuable Intimidate is in draft. The ability to take the bite out of what your opponent's trying to do can be, game changing. And then Toad Scroll's another one that our league has not touched a whole heck of a lot. I think its ability, where it always is negative priority status, has always kind of, I think people haven't been all about that specifically, but it's got good stats. Grass Ground is a good good typing, covered well by its buddies Arcanine and Keldeo. I think as a Fairy Dragon Steel and a Fire Water Grass, there's 2 very solid cores going on here. And that's where we look at what he's got going on with the rest of the team. Pyugu, it pretty much just takes hits and toxics, that's all it does, but it's very good at that one thing. Bolton provides some very helpful speed to this team. Something up at the top that can kind of help deter someone from not going, deter someone from going like Adamant or Modest instead of the speed boosting natures instead. Lycanroc Dust kind of has a similar effect for this team. It's kind of help keeping the faster teams honest, while both having a reasonable attack, enough to be a threat to actually keep people honest. And then kind of the the mini star of the show and the namesake of the team is Necrozma. I think this thing is something that has a ton of potential that our league itself has not really touched. It's kind of a team of stuff that we know is good, but we haven't really historically seen people like really bust them open. Necrozma is really good for setup. It's great for weakness policy. It has an ability that reduces super effective damage. So I think it's only like 3/4 of what it would do, which I mean is amazing. That's a ton of survivability. It can set up in any which way. It can Calm Mind. It can Dragon Dance. Like I said a second ago, it's really good at weakness policy. This is a really exciting Mon, and I think his team covers its weaknesses pretty well. So I'm really excited to see. And he's got a couple of good things to try to get it in at the best time possible. Looking at the weakness of this team, he did a good job. Like, almost every type is got at least a slight resistance advantage. Only one that's got only one that is weak, and that's psychic, and some of those are in his bottom, ground, not psychic. And some of those are in his bottom tier, so they're not all going to come. And one of his premier, core things that are probably going to come every week, Hydreigon, is immune. It loves to come in on ground types and drop like a Draco. So I think he did a really good job as far as managing his type chart. In terms of the stats on this team, it's not the bulkiest. I think that's something he's going to have to be really careful of. But that said, the specific mons you have, you don't need to have everything have a HP of 100 when you've got stuff like Scizor with a 140 defense, soaking up those physical hits and then roosting them off. Necrozma not taking as much damage as you'd expect in any other given matchup. He's got several immunities floating around trying to soak up damage that way. So while he's not got like high average stats, he's got a couple stars that are going to kind of carry the show a little bit because they're just so good at doing what they do and they can come each week so easily. And his team has got a nice, well-rounded approach on that type chart that they're not necessarily afraid of. Like, Scizor's my wall, but I can't bring it because there's fire types. I don't have anything else to eat the hits. No, he's got that covered. So I really like the speed tiers here. Nice walk down from 121 down to 95. Then a bit of a gap of 79. And down to 60. Then obviously a huge jump down to 5. Nothing you really do to bridge that gap. One thing you might run into is because the speed tiers are so well, if there's a slower team, they might just invest all in bulk and attack. They might not even bother with speed. But this will keep the faster teams very honest. Couple big special attacks in here. Couple good, solid special breakers. No real physical breaker, but a lot of stuff that will like very consistently bring the heat with 100 plus attack stats. Nothing up in the that 120, 130, 140 range that like really starts to like just punch holes in things. But they're not struggling to hurt things either. Now over in the move category here on the bottom right, I have the same moves I put for every team. The one thing it doesn't really highlight too much is priority and status. So much gets toxic. Will-O-Wisp is useful, but there's only so many slots. Priority is, I just thought, less important than what I have here, which is hazards, removal, pivots. Then I have screens, just I think it's really handy to have screens and knockoff if you can fit them into your draft. In terms of hazards, he's got some good options. I don't know that he's going to find a spot every week. The only super consistent rocker that would probably be there frequently is Hydreigon and Necrozma, and I think both of them like to bring other sets. Necrozma can probably be a rocker a little more consistently than Hydreigon can. He has a good Spiker in Toad Squirrel, but I don't know if Toad Squirrel will come every week because of how strong this top, let's say, 7 is. Um, in terms of hazard removal, he's got that pretty well covered between Hydreigon, Scizor, and Toad Squirrel. You pretty much always have something that can fit a Defog or a Rapid Spin in. I don't think he's going to be at a loss to keep hazards off with this team. Pivot-wise, he has a reasonable amount of pivots. I wouldn't say it's like ideal, but he's got 5, and I think especially that Arcanine Teleport might catch people off guard sometimes because you're really not expecting a slow pivot out of Arcanine. And the fact that Scizor, Hydreigon, and Keldeo can all switch around is great because they have a lot of synergy where they want to get out in front, like get each other out in front of each other's uh, they want to get out in front of things that hurt each other because they can handle them so well. So the fact that they can pivot, if he can get the momentum built, he can potentially maintain it just through U-turns and volt switches and flip turns. A ton of reflect users, a good solid bit of light screens. If he ever wants to do a screens offense one week, he's got the pieces to do it. A couple good solid premier knockoff users, especially in Scizor. Necrozma is worth mentioning. Then some Thunderwave. He's had some pretty common to be brought Thunderwave users. So, fast teams, watch out. He might slow you down, and then you might not be so fast anymore. And that is Necrozma's. Moving on, we are going to go check The next coach we're going to be looking at is Kyle with the Doodlers. This is a scary team. I think Berdito said it was going to be the Dark Bird season, and I think they're teed up to maybe pull it off. This team, I think, looks a little unconventional to me at first, and that kind of throws me as I'm trying to assess what we have here. Um, but it's like all the pieces are here; they're just not in the most conventional forms possible. There is a fairy dragon steel, there is a fire water grass. I don't think those specific cores are, the heart of the team, which is maybe why it feels a little off. But there is a lot of good utility on this team. There's a lot of really good offense. There's some really good bulk. There's some Mons in here that we haven't, I think, really got to see shine in a long time, or in the case of Ursaluna Blood Moon's case, we've never got to see it shine. So hopefully Kyle will be able to kind of, show us all up and show us what we've been missing with these guys. To get started, he round one picked up Roaring Moon. Arguably one of the best archetypes in the format. Huge attack at 139. It gets photosynthesis, so it can use boost energy to further boost the attack. If he EVs it just ever so right, maybe boost the speed. But on this particular team, he doesn't even need to necessarily force the boost energy because he drafted Mega Charizard Y. It has been a long time since we've seen this mod in draft, but this team's really going to appreciate the drought. The sun is going to let Roaring Moon pop off, and the more time this thing is boosted, the more things are going to die. It's one of the best knockoff users in the format. It can Dragon Dance. I'd say in the sun, if this thing gets a dance up, it probably starts sweeping teams pretty easy. It does have that quad fairy weakness, and there are lots of mons that have some fairy um, coverage, and you're definitely going to need to bring it for this team. But then this is where the Synergy with Zard Y keeps continuing because it resists fairy, so it can just bop right back in, take the hit, and then use, Slowbro as a pivot, use Mr. Mime or Delmise or Jolteon. Any of these things can then help get Blood Moon back in. Blood Moon, excuse me. Blood Moon or Roaring Moon. After he drafted Roaring Moon, they picked up Slowbro. This pair goes together really well. Slowbro is a huge bulky pivot, which Roaring Moon wants. It wants something slow that can bring it back in, so it can keep firing off, refresh these matchups that it wants to have. It's got Regenerator, so not only is it that nice slow bulky pivot, it can keep itself healthy. It doesn't need to wait for a wish. It doesn't need to waste a turn on slack off, although it can also heal itself. So it can heal itself, switch out, be almost back to full in a turn if you give it the wiggle room to do so. And so you got Roaring Moon, you got Mega Charizard Y. Mega Charizard Y, who is not a slouch in its own regard, it's got 159 special attack. Technically, it hits harder than Roaring Moon does. And then after that, to top off this really heavy offense on the top, you've also got Ursaluna Blood Moon. It's never been drafted before. Kyle said he was going to draft it, and he committed. It's a ground normal, so you've got the electric immunity, you've got that ghost immunity. It's got a really powerful signature ability or signature move that lets it hit really hard. It's kind of like like a normal type Gigaton Hammer, I believe, but special. And I think not a lot of things resist normal attacks. It's neutral on a lot, and the stuff that wants to take a neutral attack does not want to take the ground attacks. Anything that actually resists the normal. The only thing this thing has going for it, which is the same thing that regular old Ursaluna has going against it, is that it's slow. But I think with a slower pivot like Slowbro, it's very possible to get it out in front of stuff that it doesn't mind taking a hit from, but it threatens back really aggressively. So Slowbro, so far what we looked at is kind of like the main bulk. I think this is kind of where Key comes in. Klefki itself is not super duper bulky, but it's got that prankster screen. It can get up reflect. It can get up uh, light screen. We allow life or light clay now, so those are going to be up for a long time. And once you start pivoting behind those, these things that maybe you had to check for, maybe they don't check it anymore. Now they can take the hit and they're going to start KOing you back. It's a really solid top five, and that's before we even get into the back half, which is pretty strong as far as the teams that got drafted this season are. Tornadus is another prankster mon. It's got Defiant. It might try to, if you've got like an Intimidate user, it might try to boost itself off of you with some good positioning. Terrakion, we've not seen Terrakion since season 18, and it was sporadic before that. Like the rest of the trio, it has Justified, so if you tried to, use knockoff on this team and Terrakion comes in, Terrakion gets a +1 to attack. It already has 129 attack and 108 speed, so if you help it set up, that might be all it needs. Mr. Mime's got some fun abilities. Soundproof, makes it immune to some moves. Filter, I think, might reduce damage. Technician can up its damage. It's Psychic Fairy now, and I think some people might forget that, and it is going to maybe catch somebody switching into a dragon move or popping off stab people weren't expecting. It's got a respectable speed of 90, respectable special attack at 100, speed F at 120. I'm not sure it can use Eviolite. I'd have to look into that, but if it can, it gets really bulky. But I think maybe only Mr. Mime Galar could. Delmise is a fun grass type here, rounding out the fire water grass. That is Charizard, Slowbro, and Delmise. It gets, I believe, Rapid Spin. It's got Poltergeist. It hits surprisingly hard. At 131, it's actually the second hardest hitting physical attacker on the team. And I think that's going to definitely catch somebody off guard. Especially if it gets a rapid spin speed boost up. It's technically got 3 stabs, Steel, Grass, and Ghost. So I think people can't not prep for it. Jolteon's got Volt Absorb. If you burn it or poison it, it actually gets faster due to the Quick Feed if it brings that ability. It can bring a Burn Orb, Flame Orb to make itself faster if it wants to. Just a lot of fun little tech. It's a fast electric type. I think you can't overstate the value of one of those. If we look at the type charts, overall pretty good job. There is a little bit of a ghost weakness, but I mean, you have the best dark type in the format. You have one of the scariest normal types in the format, so it's pretty well handled. There's a little bit of a fighting weakness, no ghost to offset that. Oh, excuse me, it's not a ghost weakness. It is a... I can't tell this one, but whatever it is, it's a lot in the back half where most of it is, and it's well handled in the top half, so I don't think they're worried about it. It's an ice weakness. There we go. But, I mean, Slowbro can take an ice hit all day. It will switch in no problem. Klefki does not mind ice at all. It comes in on an ice beam, starts setting up screens, and things that are weak to ice don't care as much either. If we move over to stat blocks, the team's not super bulky, but it's like all the premier offense actually is quite bulky, and Ursaluna, Blood Moon, and Roaring Moon both have big HP stats. Especially bulky for Roaring Moon, physically bulky for Ursaluna. And the kind of inverse. One's especially defensive but physically offensive, and the other is especially offensive but physically defensive. And that's kind of a weird mix. I think it might actually throw some people off. Speed tiers here are really, really good. 130, 119, 111, 108, 100, 90, 75, 52, 40, 30. No one's ever going to be able to just run like Adamant on this team. They're going to need to account for the speed, or they're going to get up. They're either going to have to choose to be outsped to hit harder, but there's never just going to be like a freebie on the natures. Looking at the move pools here, we got not a lot of hazards on this team. I don't know that Terrakion always wants to run rocks. It has the ability to, since it can chase things out and throw rocks while they run, but I think it doesn't always want to give up that fourth move pool. Clefio, on the other hand, is happy to stack spikes. It can do that all day. That 4 slot's not a big deal. The team's got a lot of good defog users. Klefki, again, is another one where if it needs to that week, it is happy to run defog. Torn gets that prankster defog. You got Rapid Spin from Delmise and Mr. Mime, which feels weird, but I mean, that's pretty handy. We've got 5 pivoters, mostly in like the mid tiers. It's your Jolteon, Mr. Mime, Tornadus, but also Roaring Moon and Slowbro. Those two can form kind of a gross pivoting core to keep each other safe. Roaring Moon, probably one of the best knockoff users in the game. Torn and Delmise are no slouches either. Lots of Thunderwave users. This team doesn't need to slow their teams down so much, but the option is never bad. I think it's a really scary team. I really think Verdito and the Doodlers can maybe, shoot back up to the top of the rankings this season with this. I think they're going to get some people. I think they're going to get some people who, not even by surprise, they're just going to outplay and outbuild. I'm really excited to see what they do with this team. Look at the Combustions. So this is Paco's team. He started off strong, grabbing arguably one of the most versatile mons in the format in Tornado Slarian. It can do defense, it can do offense, it can do utility, it can do pretty much anything you want it to. Very few mons are more versatile, except for maybe like Mew. And Mew doesn't necessarily have the survivability this thing does, and because it has Regenerator, one of the few not water, not grass regenerators in the game. The one thing that'll wear it down is hazards, and he doesn't need to worry about that because he also drafted Iron Treads, who removes hazards all day. It's its job. It's what it does well. It hits into the things that want to put the hazard, or that want to clear them on the other end, so it can put hazards up, keep them off its side, deter the stuff that wants to come out to clear it for his opponent. Great typing in ground steel. It can use booster energy to boost a stat of its choice. It's got the stat spread where it can kind of pick the stat it wants to go. It's not like some of the Paradox mons where it's kind of stuck into one thing, always getting boosted. I think he's going to have a lot of fun with that. He also, to kind of, he's got good special coverage over with Torn, but not a ton of good physical. But then he picked up Annihilate, who, as we have seen in the past, when it was piloted under Adam with the Pachirisu, is just a menace. If you can get it in, let it take a hit, get back out, wish it back up healthy, maybe get up some screens, just help it take as many hits as it can take. Then it just comes in, hits Rage Fist, and just starts clearing the board. I think Paco built a team that can do that. He's got several bulky things that it can run away out into. It's got Prim, it's got Iron Treads, it's got Torn, it's got Chansey, Dragalzi, Bronzong, Rotom, Vullaby. So many things that can take these hits that it doesn't want to take, that take hits that it happily eats. And then it's got stuff like Chansey that can then, with its massive HP stat, wish it up. And then when the fighting type that wants to take Chansey goes for it, Chansey wishes in to Annihilate, but heals back to full. Its Rage Fist counter can start climbing again. It can start hitting back. I just think he's built a good team to let Annihilate do its thing. He's got Primarina. I think kind of like, in my mind, it's right up there with the Premier Fairies, even though it's lower down here. It's bulky, but it hits hard. Um, the one thing that's got it going for it is not crazy fast, but I mean, 60 is not, it's fast for a bulky thing. It's not, it's slow for offensive, fast for bulk. It'll be outpacing your opponent's walls a decent chunk of the time. Chansey, I'm a big believer in Chansey. I think having something like that, where if he can take out your physical breakers, your primary physical attackers, he might be able to win just by sending Chansey out and hitting Seismic Toss and Toxic, and then just soft boiling up once you finally get it in like 6-hit KO range, because it takes special attacks all day, every day. And with stuff like Annihilate, stuff like Iron Tread, stuff like Crim, it doesn't have to necessarily worry about covering on the defensive side. So that top 5, very versatile. Lots of different things you can do it. And then just to make sure he was good on offense, he drafted Ogrebrawn Hearthling. This is one we've not seen used a lot, but it just has so much potential. It's got Mold Breaker, so there's no such thing as a fire immunity, no such thing as a grass immunity. It can just click its best moves and go in as hard as it can. One drawback, it cannot hold an item. So that would be your one, limiting factor with this mon, is it can't be artificially made faster. It can't be artificially made to hit harder. But honestly, it doesn't necessarily need to. It hits plenty hard all on its own. And it is already plenty fast at 110. That outspeeds a good chunk of the meta. This hits into steel types that this team might otherwise struggle with if Annihilate is hurting. Hits into bulky waters, which this team definitely struggles with. It's a fire type without a water weakness, which is, super valuable. And then I think in these bottom 4 tiers, he just, kind of like I said with the Doodlers, it's 4 mons that you kind of have to prep for every week. Maybe 3. Depends on how much stock you put in the Volibee. The Drag Algae, it eats special hits really well. Not as well as Chansey, but I mean, it is pretty chunky on the special side. And it's no slouch when it comes to just dropping Dracos either. With that 97 is a respectable special attack. So, I mean, a wall that can hit back can be a scary thing. It can poison, it can flip turn, and then poison you on the way out. It's got adaptability that's boosting how much that Draco is hurting. Bronzong, very passive, very hard to kill. And if we're just looking at a way to pivot in some of these other threats, something to eat a hit for Annihilate, something that Torn can run out into to regen, Bronzong's perfect. It's got 2 different immunities, both good. You never know which one you're dealing with. We all tend to think of it Levitate, but sometimes it doesn't need to be Levitate. It can be heat proof, and that is the better build choice. And I think Paco's got the skill to identify that and then leverage off of it. It's got, I think, body press now, so it now has kind of an offensive option and like an iron defense body press sort of offense. It's just fighting stab, but fighting is good stab. Rodent Frost. If I could draft a team of just all the Rotom forms, I would do it. I love Rotom. It's got to probably be in my top 5 favorite Pokemon. I've drafted Rotom Frost and Fan together about 5 times. I think at the price point they have to be some of the best mons in the tier. We're talking 107 attack, defense, special, and special defense. A very respectable speed in 86. Excuse me. It's only 107 in defense, special attack, and special defense. Oh, no. Now, Rotom Frost, is it the most durable of all the Rotoms? No. The ice typing does hurt it. But it's still a ground immunity. It's a great pivot. It takes the hits from the things it needs to. Like ice, electric, especially, is not a bad defensive typing. Is it going to want to take any physical hits? Probably not. But on the special side, it's really not a bad defensive typing. It's got your utility. You got Draining Kiss. You've got Pain Split. You've got Thunderwave, Will-O-Wisp. All these different little moves that it brings it, and suddenly your life is more difficult than it had to be. And it's hard, and it's really hard to know which of the two handfuls of utility moves that it has that are all helpful. It's going to bring. Pretty much the only move you can know of Rotom is probably going to bring is Volt Switch, maybe Defog. So if we go down here and look at the type chart, the only real weakness of the team is Rocks. And to be fair, Rocks is not a minor weakness to have. It's a stab that lots of things get. Stone Edge, 120 base power move, just sprinkled all over the place. Annihilate doesn't mind taking a stone hit. Iron Treads doesn't mind even more. And anything that is feeding into Annihilate's Rage Fist counter is a problem. So it's kind of it's a weakness, but it's a weakness that he can play off of, which is more than I think most people can say about their type charts when you do see that red pop up. And then he has 3 neutral typings, and everything else has at least +1 into the resistances, and that is awesome. Really well drafted, Paco. Now, if we look at the stat box here, again, people just in general did a pretty dang good job with the speed tiering. There's none of these. No one has a real egregious gap. This one has a few more gaps, if you will, than the previous teams we looked at. But 106 to 90, that's not crazy. There's going to be some stuff that's sitting at 100. There's going to be some 101 that are in the middle there that are gonna. I know what way they have to go, but I mean that's just the game. You've got Chansey. It's an HP stat leader all on its own, but Annihilate also pretty thick and bulky at 110. It says he has a bad average attack score, but that's because of Chansey. Right at top, we've got 4 things that have over 100 attack. At least one of them have just good straight breaker. They don't need any sort of setup to do good solid chunks of damage. Defense, we've got multiple things with over 100 defense. Special attack, we've got, again, several things with over 100 special attack. One's definitely a breaker. Spadef, super bulky on the Spadef side. It's not going to be necessarily the way you're going to go after this team. And then, like I said, good march down the speed tiers. Lower base stat totals than, I'd say, the average team. But I don't know that you feel that when you look at it. This team overall, I think, it's hard to say exactly how you beat this team because this team doesn't necessarily fall into your normal, hyper offense, stall. If anything, this is bulky offense, maybe. This is a team that I think can go toe-to-toe with any other given team, and it's really going to come down to who builds better, who plays better that day. This team could, if it gears into its offense and the utility it can bring, could cripple a hyper offense team enough that it is able to outlast it. It also could power through a more stallier team with the right sets, right coverage, that sort of thing. And I think if you try to go toe-for-toe, bulky offense, it's going to come down to who plays better that day. If we look at the move chart here, great hazard spread, lots of different hazard setters, all sorts of different hazards. The only thing is missing is sticky webs. Plenty of removal options. I don't think losing the hazard game is necessarily going to be a fear for this team. Ton of pivots. Ton of pivots. 9 out of 10. So almost every single thing drafted can pivot. You'll love to see that. That means you have the more pivots you have, the more options for no free switches. You're doing something of use on turn that helps you not lose momentum or maintain momentum, which I think, especially the longer you've been here, momentum is like king. If you can keep it, your odds of winning go way up. Um, Decent amount of reflect and light screen on mons that are willing to use it and can potentially make room. Plenty of good knockoff users, Torn, Ogrepon, Iron Treads. A couple of Thunderwave users. There's also at least, I bet, one or two Will-O-Wisps on this team. So it does have options to cripple an offensive team, which I think it might just do 1 or 2 weeks. Really good. Okay, our next coach is Connor with the Mareeps. This team is, I think, kind of fun. It's different from the last couple. He's got some very, very fast threats and some very, very slow threats. And he's got just like a lot of like Pokemon drafting classics sprinkled in here. So it's very like old and new team that he's put together. You've got the new stuff. You've got Screamtail. You've got Raging Bolt. You can even put Megalopunny up there, and slightly newer, but not that new nowadays. Not after having Megas throughout most of our format. Then you've got the really old staples like we've got Nidoking, we've got Incineroar. This stuff that's just it's been around forever. We know it's good. We've got Skarmory. These are just these are classic building blocks, and I think the fact that they're so well known will lend themselves to what Connor's going to do this season, because they're not necessarily mons you have to figure out as you go. And I think that'll be helpful, especially as it allows him to put more brain power towards utilizing how to best get your bang for your buck out of Screamtail, get your bang for your buck out of Raging Bolt. These newer but really good mons that he's put together. Now, he had the really, really late pick up of Manaphy in the very last round to round out his Firewater Grass of Manaphy, Incineroar, and Leafeon. It's a little bit lower tier minus Manaphy, but I do like it. It's it's bulky Firewater Grass while having the option to go offensive. You can slap a band on Incineroar and it do some pretty substantial damage. You can Tail Glow with Manaphy. You can do a band Sun option with Leafeon, Sword Dance with Leafeon, and really maybe get somebody 1 week. This team has the option of a Pocket Sun option. Connor did not pick up any Sun ability setter, so nothing that's just switching and it's up, but he has plenty of mons that could click Sunny Day, and we're off to the races with Chlorophyll. We're off to the races with the Paradox mons popping off. It'll be kind of interesting to see if he does pull that 1 week. Firewater, so that's his Firewater Grass. He's got a very solid Dragon Fairy, Steel and Scarm, Raging Bolt, and Screamtail. It's kind of like slow offense, medium speed defense, and then a very fast kind of utility defense, but also it's been known to set up and take some people out in the past, myself included. A long time ago, Chris did a bulk upset that just wiped me out completely. It's just a very solid core. Then he has a lot of mons, kind of on the periphery of those two that he can do a lot with. Nidoking, it has been a damage leader for as long as it's been out. The only reason it's as cheap as it is now is because how high geared the meta has become. And Megalopunny, I mean, it's tier 18 for a reason. It's fast. It's got Scrappy, so those ghost immunity. that Ghost having that fighting normally doesn't matter. It can just keep firing off its best stuff. Um, Now, if we go down, he's got, Cragonal's got Levitate. Cofagrigus, a good, bulky Ghost is never a bad thing. If we scroll down and look at the type charts here, you'll see that Connor managed to go the draft without picking up a single overall weakness across his team, which is awesome. Now, it's not as green as some of the other teams are because we do have a decent number of neutral type in matchups here. And I do think there's a bit of a hidden ground and ice weakness that he's going to have to be mindful of managing as we go into the season. But I do think as long as it's not random coverage, if he can see where those threats are coming from, he did pick up the lower tier mons to manage them. Cryogonal can handle both depending on where they're coming from. Cofagrigus is this huge bulky wall. Leafeon also helps with ground types, man. He can handle them as long as he sees them coming. Now, I think if someone gets sneaky or gets real creative, they could have a gotcha moment. But I do think he's built a team that if he's being thoughtful, he'll be able to work around it. Now, looking at the stats, we've got the bulk is there, especially in HP. 3 different things with over 100. A couple things that are pretty high, 80, 95. Like, the team is bulky, for sure. Lots of very defensive mons. A couple that are very spadef, although not as spadef-thick as we are physically. Attack, lots of good stuff in there. Good breakers. Now, with the special department, you have Manaphy, which is good. It can definitely, it can set up, it can do some damage, but really a lot of the special damage carrying is going to be by Raging Bolt. Now, Raging Bolt is really good. It's got priority to account for how slow it is, but it is really slow. So it's going to have to work to kind of manage damage input versus output. You don't want it to take so many hits that suddenly your opponent brings out a Chansey or not a Chansey, but something very physically defensive, and you've lost your only special breaker. Think a Pecharunt or something of those lines. Could become an issue if Raging Bolt goes down. If we look at the move tiers here, I think they're really good. He's got very solid rockers. Scarm is, the OG for setting hazards. He's got 2 different Toxic Spike users who are both viable. His options for removal are a little less, but again, Scarm is a really good defogger. And Cryogonal likes to rapid spin. It's half the reason you bring it to any given match. As far as pivot, he's got a ton of really good pivoting options. Incineroar is like a pivoting king. Manaphy getting U-turn is very helpful. You can get a good Volt turn cycle going between Lopunny, Bolt, Incineroar, and Manaphy. That is a good core to have pivot. And then he's got every baton passer in the world. The only thing he's going to have to be careful about there is making sure that some of these mons like to set up, and if they're setting up, he probably doesn't want to bring baton pass because you don't want to pass that illegal boost. But his options are there. He can pivot out a lot of stuff. He has a few reflect and light screen users. They're all pretty viable. Plenty of knockoffers. A lot of them are concentrated in his lower tiers, but Incineroar, again, is one of those premier knockoff users. Manaphy's move pool, I'm learning, is just insane with the amount of things it can do. He's got some great Thunderwave users. If you have something slow, like Raging Bolt, how do you account for that? You slow everything else down, and this team can do that. I think this team is going to potentially struggle with more hyper offensive teams if they can punch a hole through Skarmory, if they can punch a hole through Incineroar. It could get dicey kind of fast. But I do think as far as like more stally teams, more bulky offense teams, this one can hang in with the best of them. And I do think Connor's going to have a fun season with this. So up next we have Emerson with the Clodsires. Um, this team I think is really scary. You're probably going to hear me say that about every team. I'm acknowledging it now. I think I just find a lot of what we drafted this time around really good, really scary. But looking at this team, we've got Garchomp, you know, tier 18, Premier Dragon. Dragon Ground is such a good typing. Gets you that electric immunity. Um, it hits like a truck for as bulky as it is. It's pretty fast. It can be a wall. It can set hazards. It can set up. It just has so many options that you're going to have to plan for a spread no matter the week, unless you can just see one that's geared for you. One mon that makes other coaches think that much is always good. And then just looking at the Fairy Dragon Steel Core that he brought with it, it's just phenomenal. I mean, Scizor, all-time great among the Steel-type Pokemon. It is a great wall. It can roost to really just help stall out your opponent. It's got Technician, so Sword Stance, Bullet Punch is always a threat. If your team gets low enough, Scizor sometimes just wins, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that paired up with the bulk and versatility of Garchomp is super good, super scary. And then on top of both those, we have Mega Gardevoir. She's relatively fast. She's got that 165 special attack. She's got Pixelate, so she can pick up some just incredible damage off moves like Hyper Voice. Psychic Fairy, so that you got that Dragon immunity. A huge fighting resist, which will come up here in a second. And it's just, premier special breaker, right along with the premier physical breakers that make up the other bit. Her special defense is nothing to sneeze at. It's just a very offensive, very bulky core to base the rest of this team around. That fighting weakness will also come in handy with Weavile. I kind of sometimes think of, it's 4 times weak to fighting, but it's also like one of the most counter draft Pokemon available to us. A lot of the big setup and get away from you threats are Psychic types and Dragon types, which Weavile is just designed to take out. Triple Axle, Icicle Crash, Knockoff. Those 3 moves check half of the top tiers. And then it's even got, while not optimal, some small options if it needs to clear out something that it does struggle with, like a fighting type. It's got Low Kick. It's just a phenomenal mon, and really good for clearing out the things that might threaten to outpace that fire or that Dragon Fairy Steel Core that he's built. They have a phenomenal wall. I think, as everyone knows, my personal favorite, Alola is going to, it's Regenerator. It's got a massive HP stat. It's just going to go the whole season, and it's going to allow that bulky offensive core to just keep switching and keep switching and keep switching in. And it's not going to die. It's going to be one of the most frustrating things about fighting this team is that it just keeps coming in and getting the thing that needs to be in for Emerson. And that's just in his top 5 months. His top 5 months, awesome. And I think he picked some really fun utility and offense to round out the bottom of this. You've got Nihilega, great special attacker. I think it even has a pretty solid special defense. Yeah, it really does. And then it's got Beast Boost. It can threaten to just get carried away. It's fast, it's especially offensive, especially bulky, and it can just start setting up by getting kills. So Beast Boost is always scary. You've got Thundurus, who is just the genies are all good. There's not a bad one among the group. It gives you priority defog in case you really just have to get something cleared out of the way so something else can finish up. Passimian is one that we haven't seen used very often, but I think I really like to see someone get good utility out of it. It, along with Thundurus, both have Defiant, so if you're someone who's trying to run Intimidate, anything that will lower stats, a Sticky Web team, Suddenly, these guys are taking advantage of your strengths. Vigoroth, it can't be put to sleep. It can do Swords Dance. It is not the fastest thing in this meta at 90, but it's relatively bulky, 80, 80, 80. For the tier he got it at, it's a great pickup. And Bronzor is, well, it's Bronzor. But the amount of things it does do is surprising. And you have to really consider once you stack Eviolite on this thing, it's got 124 stats. Or, excuse me, 123 in defense ends. But if it can take a hit, it's got 2 built-in immunities. Well, excuse me, 3 with poison. Even as just a hard switch pivot to take some hits, it's going to provide utility to this team. It's providing hazards. I think it's a really, really solid top of the draft with some very interesting lower tier pickups. If we look at the typing chart, much like the Mareeps, the Clodsires came out of the draft with no overall weaknesses. Amazing job. And in this one, they also have some neutral typings, but it's actually less this time, so that's even more impressive that there's so many resists across the board. If we go into the stat spread here, I like the speed tiers. It marches right down from 125 right down into 90, 80, 65. But the top of this team is so fast. The fact that it slows down at the bottom probably won't matter that much. They want to be slow. And at this point, your team's so fast, the one thing you might need to worry about is our team's not bothering trying to speed you, bulking up and just investing in an offense. But when you know other teams are forced to do that, it's something you can build around. Because if you know they're not going to invest in the speed, you might not have to either. Now, I will say this team is a lot of the bulk is in the HP because, at least physically, the defensive stats aren't super there on any of these guys, with the exception of Scizor and Bronzor. And Bronzor, while neat, is not coming every week. On the Spadef side, we have a bit more, a way more wiggle room. Like we've mentioned, Nihilego, Gardevoir, these things have big Spadef stats to go with their special offense. And they cover each other's weaknesses decently well, actually. So on the special side, this team's covered a lot better than it is physically. We've got 3 special breakers that will come frequently on this team. Even though a lot of teams does not hit very hard on the special side, I mean, once you have 3 things over 120, you really don't need the rest of the team to do it because they're carrying the weight more than enough by themselves. Same thing with his offense. They have 4 things with over 115 attack. That is just phenomenal. I think this team is going to be really, really scary on the offense. Now, I think it has the bulk where it needs it to pivot into the things that need to come in. Now, if we go look over at the moveset, good hazard setting options. They've got rocks. They've got spikes. They're on mons that are going to want to come. Garchomp is a premier hazard setter. Nihilego can all set it, although I think it wants to set them less. It wants its other moves. Thunderous, priority defog. Scizor is like one of the premier defoggers. There's a lot of pivoting on this team. It looks like about 6 out of 10 can pivot, and at that point, I mean, if it's really low tiers that aren't doing it, well, at that point, it doesn't matter that much. They're coming 1 week, coming 2 weeks. Lots of reflect, lots of white screen. Pretty much almost every single thing on the team can knock off. So your items are not safe against this team. He can throw it on just about anything, and there's not a lot you can do about it. You're just going to have to hope you either bring items you don't care about as much or try to predict the things that are going to be throwing it at you, which on this team is hard. There's a lot of thunder waivers, so this team can slow other teams down even more. Just kind of make the speed a non-factor in the match. I really like this team. I honestly, off the top of my head, can't tell you exactly how you beat it. It's so bulky, it's so offensive, it's got such good, pivoting where it needs it. Um, I almost think you have to break it before it breaks you. I think this one was really well done. Good. The next coach up is myself. I will probably try to keep this one pretty brief, partially because I don't want to give away all the insider secrets I have in my brain, and also because, I don't know, who loves to talk about themselves that much? But with this being the sleep-deprived baby brain season, I just decided to go for something that was fun. And when I picked up Greninja, I was like, well, I could do the funniest thing and just grab all of them. And had originally intended to grab even Kecleon, but I ran out of points. I was going to go with my classic Chansey offense, but when I got snapped for Petra, I had to pivot into the other Chansey, the Oxus defense. A good old friend. At that point, I was just trying to look for, I felt like I had so much offense wrapped up in the Protean trio that I just needed some bulk. So then I grabbed Corviknight, who honestly I've been trying to draft for seasons now, so that worked out really well. And then once I had the Protean trio, the two nice big defenders, I was kind of like, the Protean trio actually doesn't hit that hard. There's a ton of versatility there. When your opponent has to prep for the 15 different types your Pokemon could be collectively, there's a lot of versatility, a lot of, people can only prepare for them so much sort of things. But I don't have a breaker, and I love to have breaker on my team, so that's what brought us to Thundifarian. That 145 special attack is something I think my team will really appreciate. I found in past drafts that having a fast electric type is something that's really helpful. And then I normally regretted not drafting one, so now I have one that's great. At this point, I realized, well, I had a really good Fire, Water, Grass core. I just had a Steel type, and no Fairy, no Dragon. So I sought out trying to find stuff to fill that core. And that brought me to Fancy. Good stat spread. Obviously has some inherent weaknesses, but I think Corviknight covers those really well, as does Deoxys. And between Deoxys's, I think, 160, 160 defenses, and Diance's 150 defenses, I feel like I can probably normally gear my team in a way that lets it eat the hits it needs to hit. My next pick had a similar train of thought. I have these three really good, versatile offensive Mons. I have a special breaker. I have three really good defensive Mons, but I don't have a physical breaker. Now, Cinderace functions as a physical breaker much better than Greninja functions as a special breaker. But I just, I love to see that 130 plus offensive stat, and that's what brought me to Glacier. Also, I felt like I owed it to myself to draft it after suggesting to knock it down a tier. And then when it happened to fall in my lap, I was like, this is awesome. I have good slow pivots to bring it in. Maybe it can soften things up for the Protean trio or duo or whatever should happen to come that week. And then I think I was successful. I went into round 9 with 2 points left, which set me up for 2 1-pointers. I think I did a good job of finding 2 1-pointers that add a lot of value to my team in the sense that people are still going to have to prep for them. They could, in theory, come to more than one match in a season. There are a lot of 1-pointers where they can come once, and then you're never going to see them again. You saw they came week 5, you no longer prep for them because why would you? And I think these two kind of stop you from doing that, which I think is all you can ask for from a 1-pointer, is something that can come one week and be effective and threaten to come another. We've got screens and parting shot with Morgrim. I think the only reason that Grapple Lock is a 1-pointer is because there's better fighting types. It just kept getting pushed down till it was one of the worst fighting types available, but it's not inherently bad. Its stat spread's good. It's got some fun moves in its move pool. It's got some almost unique moves, and I think it could be really fun one week. I think it could do some get somebody by surprise. Unlike a couple of the past coaches, if we look down at my type spread, I was not able to get 0 weaknesses across the board. Although I do think I've, in my primary, maybe top 8, if you'd call it, I do think I have my weaknesses fairly well managed. Once you start getting the low tiers that aren't coming every week, I think some of those weaknesses are a little less serious. When 3 of your Pokemon have a type changing ability, those weaknesses kind of only matter when you're switching in or if you're slower. So I don't discount them, but I also think that there is some wiggle room there that some other Pokemon might not have that are locked into the same typing no matter what. But like I said, Protean is fun. Is it a good idea? I don't know. But we're going to ride with it because this is the fun season, not the season where we're aiming for number 1. I like up top. The other thing I meant to say this earlier, I liked about Thundies, it's got Volt Absorb, which Greninja and Corv really appreciate. Something to come in and take, those fast electric types that I sometimes have trouble with, will have trouble with him. So that is, all the value in the world to me personally. If we look at my general stat spreads, I think I did a decent job with my speed tiering. I don't think it's the best in the league. But I think it's fast enough that I'm not going to be horrifically struggling in the speed wars. HP wise, it's not a bulky team. I can fully acknowledge that. But I do think my defense and SPDEF and my walls, very good. I think I got some nice, very bulky stuff. Like I said, my main struggle was getting breakers, so I drafted 1 of each. Other than that, I don't have anything where it's like my special attack outside of Thundy and Greninja is pretty lacking. But I do think that in between the two, I don't need a lot more, potentially. And I do think I stacked my physical offense where I have a bunch of stuff that can potentially really, let loose against my opponents. And I'm happy about that. Got a pretty average base stat total when you look at it compared to other teams. And then going to the moves. As a guy whose take on hazards and removal has always kind of been what are those? I don't use them and I don't interact with them. They're not a part of the game I play. I drafted, I think, pretty good removal and pretty good hazards. I've got really good saves for Stealth Rocks. I've got a ton of spikes options. Got more than 1 spikes. Toxic spikes, it is. I've got 2 very good defog users. I've got port change. I think I have lots of options to kind of manage the hazard game that I don't normally have on the teams I draft. I don't know that I really set out to do that, but it was a very pleasant surprise when I started getting into the draft and noticed that was appearing. Maybe more accident than purposeful, but I think it was a happy accident. In terms of pivot, which was one thing I was kind of after, I think I ultimately wound up with 8 things. 9 things that can pivot, I think. No, excuse me, 8. 8 pivots out of 10. That, I think, for a team like this that really wants to keep getting the right mon up front is really good, and I think probably necessary. So I was really satisfied with that. I think I don't have a ton of Reflect and Light Screen users, but I think the ones I do have are good. They're consistent. They're things that are going to come. I've got a couple good knockoff users. I think Meow is one of those. I don't know if premier knockoff users is the right word, but it's up there in terms of people who can knock off. And then I got a couple, I think, decent Thunderwave users. If I can hopefully slow down some of the faster teams so that my team can stay faster, I think that'll really be to my benefit. Also got a couple Willow Whispers tucked in there. I need to take the bite out of something. I was happy with this draft. Next up is the Houndooms. I think the Houndooms did a phenomenal job. They are one of our newer coaches. I think this is their third season, I want to say. Riz just drafted a phenomenal team. I think if people recall, excuse me, are coming off of a phenomenal, or they're coming off a mono steel season, which honestly was a very cool team. Going from mono steel to this shows huge drafting growth on their part. I think they internalized a lot of lessons across the last two seasons, and they just really put everything they've learned in the last two seasons forward here. This is a team that I would be jealous to draft, and I think they're going to have a lot of fun with it. Mega Gallade, arguably one of the best mons in the format. I think, it can hit like a truck. It's fast. It's got a move pull that's just insane. There's no week where you're going to be like, there's nothing this thing can do. I better bring something else. It can go into any team, any matchup with not even, I'm not going to say minimal prep, but without having to bang your head against the wall to find the right set. And they have paired it with just a awesome defensive core in Zapdos and Tanglu and Empoleon. There's nothing that trio can't take for one another. They are incredibly bulky. Empoleon and Zapdos both have recovery. Tanglu is so bulky that leftovers feels like recovery. Like those four right there are just a trio that can constantly bring in one of the most devastating mons in the format. And then they paired that with Hoopa Unbound. This is a mon that gets a bad rep in draft because of that bug weakness. It is just a monster of a Pokemon that has a couple very identifiable and exploitable weaknesses. But I mean, how many Pokemon in this format can go around toting 160 attack, 170 Spadef, 170 special attack, and 130 Spadef, all in one mon? That's normally a couple mons worth of, big stat totals. So that is nothing to scoff at. It's got the same amazing defensive core to pivot it in and out that Gallade does. It takes, all it takes is a flip turn from a Polygon, and suddenly you're like, okay, what am I sacking? What is taking this hit? I don't have a good switch here. So those top five, just insane potential. And they drafted a very solid back half of their draft, too. All things you have to prep for, all things that can come more than 1 week. Nothing here is a write-off. Talonflame is a tried and true draft mon. Flame Body has won matches before. Pheasantipty is a newer Pokemon for the league, as it is just a newer Pokemon. But it really does this team a lot of favors. Have that grounded poison. It's a good fairy. And that's keeping toxic spikes off, say, Tanglu, is really appreciated. Sinestro, also fairly new, but I think already kind of like a league classic, league favorite, if you will. We have seen it just go toe-to-toe with some of the biggest threats in the league. We've seen it, get the better of some of the best coaches in the league. It's a mon that's on my personal short list to draft one of these days when it finally makes a space. It's got immunities built in. It's got immunities to fighting, and if you want to go heat proof, it's got immunities to fire. Tyrantrum, this is a personal favorite of mine. Uh, how good it is, I'll leave that up to the listener's personal opinion, but I really enjoy it. I think this team enjoys the Rock Dragon. I think it's primed because of how strong that pivoting core is to like, if you can get a Tyrantrum that actually gets set up, it can do some insane damage. It's just sometimes hard to position. I think this team has the tools to position it where it needs to go. And then Lickitung is just a little chunk. It can wish pass. It can eat hits. Can't get confused. Can ignore weather. It's just a high value for what it is. And also, you got to remember, it gets Eviolite. So those 75 defense, 75 Spadef are now up, 110 in that ballpark. I just really enjoy this team. I think it's probably one of my favorite teams of the draft, personally. So if we go look at the type chart, lots of green. I think they did a very good job of getting everything that they wanted covered for the most part. Some of these weaknesses come in the lower tiers, and since they are not mainstay members of the team, that means it's not a mainstay weakness. It's something that needs to be kept in mind, but it's not something that's going to be constantly stacked up all the time. I do think they're going to have to be mindful of their fairy weakness. But in between Empoleon and Fezandipity and Talonflame, they've got the tools to deal with it. If we look at the stat blocks, this team is average bulky, with the exception of Tinglu, who is just massively pulling up that HP stat average. Defense-wise, a lot of these mons have reasonably high defense. You've got Tyrantrum, you've got Sinestro, and obviously Tinglu with big defense stats. Spadef is not slacking either. Zapdos and Fezandipity both have big. Oh, even Mega Gallade itself is pretty chonky on the Spadef side. And then you get into the attack stats, and you got 165 with Mega Gallade, 110 with Tinglu, 121 with Tantrum, 160 with Hoopa Unbound. A team that has two Mons that are both 160 plus an attack in the same category, that's pretty crazy. And then in special attack, we've still got, 115 of Mega Gallade. It doesn't have to just be a physical attacker, although it probably should be. You've got Fezandipity's got 125, Hoopa Unbound's got 130. You've got even like Empoleon's got 101. This team has the legs to put in some work. For as bulky as it can be, lots of damage is going to be coming out of this team. And then the speed tiers are, there are faster teams, and the speed tiers are a bit more paced out, but they're also, you're pretty, 126 down to 30 is very regularly stepped down. So, there's not a area in here where it's like, oh, if you have a Mon that's 100, or if you have a Mon that's like, some like we have the 108 and 109, they're not scot-free to just do whatever they want. Or some of the stuff that sits between 70 and 100. There's stuff that they're going to have to build around. No one is free to just pick the most offensive set available. This team has good speed tiers, and since other people are going to have to build around it. And then if we get into the move pools here. Sorry for the pause there for a second. Our assistant, Coach Henry, had a couple things he wanted to chime in with. But yeah, looking at these move pools, there's not a ton of hazards going on, but Tinglu, you almost don't need anything else set hazards, and Empoleon can also set rocks. Tyrantrum doesn't love to be a rock setter, but it absolutely can be. Three really solid defog options. Hazards are something they're going to be able to get rid of if they want to get rid of them. As far as pivots go, this team probably struggles more than most in pivoting around. Zapdos and Talonflame are really good. Like the fact that Zapdos and Empoleon and Talonflame are all good pivots, I think will be the saving grace for this team. They all are good enough to come frequently. They are different types of pivots. So if there is a type that's, getting really walled, or in the case of Volt Switch, maybe there's an immunity that keeps coming in. Um, he doesn't get completely shut down. Gallade can pivot, but it's teleport, and it doesn't really want to take a hit because you want it to stay as offensively viable for as long as you want. So I wouldn't really consider it a pivot in the same way that I'd consider those other three. Pheasantipity also makes for a pretty good pivot the weeks that it comes. Uh, Several good knockoff users here. Hoop Bound, that knockoff is going to hit just insanely hard, as will Gallades. It's just two insanely hard knockoffs. And then, like I said, this team isn't the fastest, but that's why it's going to really appreciate Thunderwave. It's really going to appreciate passive. I forgot to say this about Zapdos, but passive Terra via static from Zapdos on weeks where it's not trying to, pressure something down, which in theory is probably most weeks. It's probably going to be running static, but it's something this team really appreciates is it just passively slowing down those physical threats. This team, I don't think there is a surefire strategy to get at this team or like force a win. I think it can try to outstall slower teams. It can try to out offense stally teams. I think bulky offense is one of those things where it depends on how each coach built. And I don't think there is a bulky offense team in this whole draft that has an inherent edge on this team. And hyper offense is gonna struggle to break through Zapdos, Tangela, and Empoleon, not to account for Talonflame and Pheasantipity. I think this is a team that can outlast hyper offense, assuming everyone's building their best and playing their best. I think Riz did a great job with this team. Like I said, it's probably my favorite. They did really, really well. Good job. We'll move on to the next coach. Our next coach is is Photon Phoenix with the Star Raptors. The Star Raptors are a new team to our league and only have one season of monotype draft experience at all. But looking at this draft, you would not guess that this was their first season. They've put together a very good team. Once again, we're seeing Garchomp, Mega Garchomp this time. Key differences is it's traded off some of that speed that base Garchomp has in return for just packing one hell of a punch. It's one of the highest attack stats in the game. It's still bulky. It can still set hazards. It's just a little more pure offensive. It wants to set up to get fast. It isn't as inherently fast to get from the get-go. Still really good. And they have put together a really good Dragon Fairy Steel around it. Tapu Fini, really bulky. It's got that anti-status terrain setting, so you're not getting any of these mons toxic. They're not getting parried, not getting burned, which is something that Mega Garchomp really appreciates. It's fairy water, that just makes it inherently very bulky as far as a defensive typing goes. Heatran is an amazing fire type as long as you get that ground type weakness covered, which this team does really, really well. We've got Aerodactyl, we've got Tapu Fini, we've got Azelf, we've got Rotom-Mow. All sorts of options to deal with ground types on this team. It's a really well insulated Heatran. Heatran adds a good bit of special offense and just inherent bulk to the team, along with Tapu Fini. There's not really no, I take that back. There's absolutely Fire, Water, Grass core here in Tapu Fini, Heatran, and Rotom-Mow. You'll hear me say it a bunch of times in this. Rotom-Mow, Rotoms in general, one of my favorite Pokemon. That stat spread just, so adaptable, so universally applicable. It can go offensive, it can go defensive, it can be a bulky pivot, an offensive pivot. It's so versatile that it'll do a great job of helping get those top three where they need to be. Um, we've got Azelf was our fourth pick. Really good. It's the most offensive of the Lake Trio. I'm not sure their official name, but it's very good at just coming in. It's a good lead. It can do explosion. I think it can do stealth rocks. It can just start clicking buttons. It's kind of made to just be good to go right out the box. Classic hazards lead, suicide lead. Buzzwole is another personal favorite mon. It's so thick. We saw a really good performance of it either last season or season before. In the right matchups, you just slap band on it, bring it in as often as you can, and it just starts to snowball away because, as we said earlier, Beast Boost is such a good ability that can get a hand so fast if it gets positioned correctly. Muckalola is a great Pokemon. A poison type with psychic immunity can help you go a long, long way. It's also good at spreading some of that poison around. The two low tiers I picked up are really good in my opinion. I think there's stuff that's going to have to get considered every week. So Titan, I think it can do Belladrum, which means, wrong week can start doing some real damage. Weirdeer, it's got Intimidate, which is an amazing ability. It's got an option for a grass immunity and Sap Sipper. Frisk is probably an underrated draft ability. Just knowing what your opponents are using is a big deal. And it's just general stat spread. I mean, it's got 103 HP, 105 attack, 105 special attack. Normal Psychic, it's a Psychic type that's immune to Ghost types. There's just a lot of helpful immunities sprinkled throughout this team. And we kind of see that when we look at their type chart. Very minor weakness to Fairy, which, I mean, when you're only looking at 3 mons total that have any sort of resist or weakness, that's not a huge impact. It looks like a slight weakness to Rock, but again, those are both in the low tiers for the most part. If we look at the stat spreads, overall, they look really, really good. This team's got a bunch of mons with over 100 HP, which just makes them inherently bulky. It's just a very inherently bulky team. This team, attack-wise, very scary. There's only 3 mons with less than 100 attack, and one of those is 90. Pretty much anything can come and click a physical move, and it's going to be doing some damage. Defense-wise, on the physical side, it's still looking great. 5 mons with over 100 defense. As you know, you're probably hearing it as I go through. I kind of think 100 is kind of the benchmark for good. And then once you get in 120, 130, that's when it's kind of getting into your this is really good at this particular thing. Special attack, you've got 5 things over 100, 1 that's 130, 120, 125. Especially this is no less scary than it is on the physical side. It's just not literally everything. And then we've got 4 things over 100 on Spadef. So this is a very offensive, very bulky team. If it can outposition you in a match, it can very quickly start to wear you down before you wear them down. The fact that you can't use status against it, as long as Tapu Fini keeps up terrain, makes it even harder to break because you can't burn Buzzwole, you can't burn Garchomp, you can't get paras off on stuff like Fini, Heatran, and Azelf, Aerodactyl. Then the speed tiers are so-so. I mean, there's 2 really fast things and a lot of middling speed things. From what we've seen so far, it's not the greatest speed tiering, but think the team is still going to do really well besides it because the team doesn't necessarily need to be fast. If we look at the moves, we've got a ton of excellent Stealth Rock users. Like we said, with the other Garchomp team, Garchomp is a premier hazard setter. It can do spikes. It can do Stealth Rock. So many good defog options on this team. Tapu Fini and Rotom-Mow, both really good, very usable options. Pivoting on this team does leave a lot to be desired. Azelf and Rotom, they're both things that are good at it, but it doesn't leave you a lot of leeway. Azelf is not really like a slow defensive pivot by any definition. Rotom can be that, but when Rotom's having to carry all the weight of moving your team around without any sort of recovery or regenerator, um, you're going to be doing a lot of hard switching on this team. You're going to be leaning on the bulk of your Mons to make sure stuff is getting in. A lot of good Reflect users, like good Light Screen users. Knockoff, it's here. Tapu Fini can use it. I don't know that it always wants to. And then everything else is more confined to low tiers and Azelf. Azelf is known to be like a fast knockoff. But you're probably not going to get got with it as much against this team as you will some others. Then Thunderwave, this team is not the fastest. Speed tier is not as great. It's probably going to appreciate some Thunderwave, but also doesn't, like I said, need to be fast to be good. This team really just needs to focus on their positioning. If they can out-position you, they can get themselves into a really good position. Excuse my phrasing, but their odds of winning go way up if they can really focus on keeping that momentum. But like I said, this is their first season in our draft format, their second season ever with any league in any format. And I think they put together a really good first draft with our league, and I'm really excited to see how they do. A small update for the Raptors who made trades before I had all of the stuff recorded. They swapped out Weirdeer and some other thing that it's a Titan for Farigiraf and Manectric. I do think, however much I do like Weirdeer, and I'd like to see someone do something cool with it. Of the Sap Sipper normal psychics, they probably switched to the better of the two. It does more for the team, I think. It is a big, bulky, slow pivot for the team that wants to be able to move its stuff around. More support for Rotom-Mow and Azelf to be able to get this team moving around, get in Mega Garchomp, get in Heatran, get in Fini and Buzzwole on those matchups that they want. I think it'll help them maintain momentum and positioning a little bit better than what he had. General same idea of Manectric. It's just a fast pivot. It's an electric immunity. It doesn't super stand out. It's fast. It patches up the speed tiers kind of nicely. Decent special attack, 105. I think they're good trades. I'm sad Weirdeer's gone, but I do think of the oddly specific typing and abilities of the two available, they've got the better one now. Our next team is the Sky Attack, coached by Quincy. I think this team at first kind of had me scratching my head looking at it, but the more I look at it, the more I like it. It's got a really strong Steel Fairy Dragon core and a very fun Fire Water Grass. There's some overlap between the two cores, which is always nice because sometimes roll compression is king when it comes to draft. I think they kind of surprised people with the round one Terapagos pick. I don't think people really saw that coming. And then once I had that, they had one of the best ghost immunities. They had one of the best spinners. It really does kind of free your draft up to go in a lot of different directions afterwards. So it makes a very versatile round one pick. It can set up in a lot of different ways. They got King Gambit, Azumarill, and Mega Charizard X as their Fairy Dragon Steel core. King Gambit is one of those mons that it almost always dies last, and if it makes it to the end, it suddenly starts turning games that should have been like maybe even a decisive victory into kind of like a 50-50, make the wrong move and you lose, make the right move and you win sort of deals, just because its ability with each fallen team member boosts the amount of damage it's doing. Then you get to the end where it's like, okay, if there's a chance I'm going to lose, I'll just start clicking Sucker Punch, and either you'll die or I'll die. Let's see how it goes. So the fact that it can force, kind of steal victory back from the jaws of defeat is a lot of value. Dark Steel is a really good typing. Outside of all of that, it just is a nice mon. It's got a high attack stat. Sucker Punch, Kowtow Cleave. Even if we ignore Supreme Overlord, it's got Defiant. So if you have a Intimidate mon and that's your check to this guy, it can be built around. Zard X is one we've not really seen in a while, but packs one heck of a punch. It's a really, really good physical attacker. It's a very fun dragon to have. Charizard finally gets its rightful dragon typing. It does pick up a ground weakness, though, which is unfortunate with the prevalence of, Earthquake in the meta. And it shares that ground weakness with King Gambit. But this is a mon that can set up, and suddenly, it gets a Dragon Dance or two up, and it's sweeping through teams. The fourth pick was my biggest personal snipe for the whole draft, Petrarunt. I was really looking forward to that Petrarunt Chansey core, but alas, this mon can do a lot of cool things. It's 80s across the board, except for its defense, which is 160. Makes it a lot like Chansey, where if their special weapons go down and Petrarunt's still up, they might not just be able to break it. That might be game right there. Petrarunt has Poison Puppeteer. It can cause confusion when it inflicts poison. Very obnoxious. Very, very obnoxious. It gets Parting Shot. It gets Recovery. Only for itself, no wish, but Recover is still really obnoxious on something this thick. It really wants to get poison spread around your team and put you on a timer. The grass in the Fire Grass with Charizard X is Ogerpon. It gets Defiant, so this is really not a team to bring Intimidate against because it could really be used against you. And the nice thing about what they have here is it's a Grass Ogerpon. It's just base Ogerpon, no secondary typing, which means it is open to using items. This one, you can band it. You can choice it. It may not have the same coverage and typing as the others, but it also doesn't have the same limitations. This one can get faster. This one can hit harder. It's just a little less predictable than the other Ogerpons. And then rounding out both cores, we have Azumarill. This mon, I think we all know, is just one of the all-time greats of the league. It comes, whenever it comes, it puts up numbers, it puts up kills, it performs well. It's been, top 5 kill leaders more than once. I think the team here built around it is really set up to make it do well. It's typically we're going to be seeing that huge power, that what makes it so good. It can do some other really funky niche things if Quincy wants to get real creative with it. It's got Thick Fat, it's got Sap Sipper. Again, weird like Whirlpool, Parish Song type deals. Now, the one thing that you see when you look at this top 5 is that it's very physically oriented. King Gambit, Mega Charizard X, Ogerpon, Azumarill. Although I will say, don't doubt Mega Charizard X. It absolutely can run a special set if the week calls for it. It's just not where it's most keyed up to really run away. But it can absolutely be a special breaker, even if it's not maybe a special sweeper. And Terapagos can. It's got, no one major stat, but it absolutely can Calm Mind up. And you might not be able to break it. And by the time it's Calm Mind up, it is a perfect special can. But to address, kind of some of that special issues, they drafted Kilowattrol, which I think is a really fun mon in draft. It's got wind power, so that gives you immunity to some of the wind moves like Hurricane, Volabzorb. So now you've got a flying type that is immune to electric. Competitive, I think, is the gender one. So if you really want to roll the dice, you could try to fish for a power boost there. It's a much wanted ground immunity. So it's not just Ogerpon and Azumarill trying to eat up all those earthquakes that Kingambit, Megazard, and Petrun just do not want to have to deal with. They made a couple trades right after the draft ended. They had Gastrodon and Articuno Goar, and they switched those out for Swampert and Gothorita. I think we can all agree of all the water grounds, Swampert's definitely the OG. I think it's the one most people prefer. It doesn't have some of those handy immunities, but what it doesn't have immunities, it does make up in bulk and kind of a little more offensive power. It also gets Flip Turn, which groundwater that can pivot and put down rocks at the same time is very valuable because usually you got to kind of pick one or the other. Their other low tier is Frosmoth. This thing's actually quite specially bulky between its ability and just natural bulk in its spread. It doesn't have a very bulky typing. It has a lot of weaknesses, and if anything with even any attack stat, I don't care if it's 20. If it looks at it funny, it's going to die. So this mon has to kind of force matchups that it wants. But if you can get Frosmoth off in front of, say, like a Milotic, a Alola Mola, some specially oriented water type, or specially oriented ice type, bug type, one of the things that it doesn't have an edge on it, and start clicking Quiver Dance, suddenly this low tier mon that dies super easy is suddenly very could just start sweeping. The speed would be the real only limitation, and at base 65, a Quiver Dancer 2 suddenly has it very fast and could very easily get out of hand if other coaches aren't careful about it. Someone's going to under prep for it 1 week, and it might make all the difference. Gothorita, this mon, I don't know a ton about it. I know that it is bulkier than it looks, thanks to Eviolite. It has some of the benefits that Gothitelle has, and Gothitelle has been banned for a large bulk of this particular league's history due to Shadow Tag. Anything that can trap something else is, pretty valuable, especially when it's kind of a blanket trap, unlike Magnet Pull or something like that. It's also got competitive. It has Frisk. Frisk is a very good ability because you can scope out other sets. When you know what sets you're dealing with, you can make a lot more informed decisions. A lot of those things that go like, well, it's a 50-50. If they have a Scarf, I lose. If they don't, I win. The odds shift a lot because you actually know what you're dealing with. If we go down type chart, it looks very nice. Lots of green, only one hit of red, and most of that red is in the bottom tiers. It's just a slight rock weakness. Otherwise, there's not really a part other than I think the type chart doesn't show ground as an issue, but I do think ground is an issue for this team. Three of the things that you expect to come every single week don't want to take an earthquake. Petra might be able, just doing sheer bulk, take one and heal it back off, but it really depends on the matchup. We go into the stat block here. This is a moderately bulky team. There's a lot of things with like big defense and SPDF stats. Well, mostly defense stats. The only thing with a big SPDF is Terapagos. But there's a lot of like high, middle, in the 90s in the SPDF side. Several things with 100 HP, so nice big chunky health pools to have to tear down. A bunch of, like I said earlier, very offensively tilted on the physical side. Lots of things up in that like breaker range of stats, 120 up. And on the special side, you've got Zard X in 130. You've got Frosmoth at 125. Terrapagos is only at 105, but it's, very easy to calm mind up with that Mon. Terra Shell kind of works like multi-scale on a Dragonite, where that, your first hit's not doing what you expect it to, and that gives it an opportunity to start trying to set up. If we look at the move pools, pretty solid hazard setting options. This team shouldn't have any issue getting rocks up. And Ogerpon is kind of a niche spike setter if the weak leaves room for it. Ogerpon, the grass one, is fighting a little less for move slots because it's not trying to fit a grass coverage and an Ivy Cudgel, because it's just Ivy Cudgel is its grass coverage. No Tox Spikes, no webs on this team. Defog, I think this team might struggle with Defog because I don't know that Zard X wants to run it, and I don't know that Frostmoth is coming every week. But luckily, they do have Terrapagos, who is one of the best spinners in the format. Can absolutely leave a spot open to clear hazards. It likes to speed up a little bit. So I think that hazards on their side won't be the biggest issue to keep off. 5 Pivot Mons, I think on this team that'll be really good, especially when one of them is a parting shot. Swamperts, Ogerpon, Peturunt, Frostmoth, and Kilowattrel. I think 4 of those will probably at least 2 of them will be at every match. So you'll have at least a little bit of pivoting going on. Unfortunately, the top tiers, Azu, Kingambit, Mega Charizard X, and Terrapagos don't get a pivot move. So it's putting a lot of weight on like Peturunt and Ogerpon and whatever, that 6 slot Mon is to get things positioned where they want to be to help keep momentum. Not 10 knockoff users, but the ones that have it do have big enough attack stats that they can at least put a dent in along with getting rid of that item. A few Thunderwave options, not a lot though. So this team might have a little trouble slowing other teams down. The speed tiering on this team is pretty good. I think there won't be any freebie nature pickups with the speed tiering on this team. I really like this one. I think it's one of those ones that it grew on me the more I looked at it and the more I talked about it. At first I wasn't sold, but actually I think I'm kind of a fan now that I've had time to look at it and think about it. Really good job, Sky Attack, on this draft, which is the GOAT, greatest of all time. Don't want to play him, although I have him in the first week. How fun. It's our every other champion, Nick, J, and the Bearticks. And compared to Quincy's team just now, Quincy's team is very straightforward in my brain compared to Nick's, who I think picked up an incredibly scary team, but very unconventional at the same time per your drafting conventions. A lot of the follow this stuff specifically is not here in the form we're used to seeing it. There is a Fairy Dragon Steel. There's not a Fire Water Grass. He's got a lot of the typings that kind of blend into pseudo cores. They're kind of outside those main cores. They do a lot of work themselves, but they don't have any inherent, kind of rock paper scissors synergy with the other types. He started off the draft with Great Tusk, which is scary because he's won MVP with Great Tusk before. And that's not even his only MVP on the team. He also picked up Aegislash in round 4, who he also has gotten MVP with. So, this team, you could almost partially call it a legacy team for Nick in the sense that he's got some old Mons who have done very good by him in the past. And I think they're going to do very well for him too, especially with the team he built around them. Great Tusk, Premier Spinner, Premier Ground type, one of the only Pokemon to learn Headlong Rush. It rapid spins away hazards, it can set hazards, it gets that speed boost from rapid spin, and suddenly it's kind of middling speed tier. It's now fast, and stuff that you were pretty confident about checking it with no longer outspeed it to check it. Round 2, they picked up Zera Aura. Not a lot of like inherent synergy between the two, except for the fact that the one thing that Great Tusk can kind of struggle with are fast flying types coming in and kind of trying to force it out with moves like Hurricane. And Zera Aura handles those really well. Not a lot of flying types that want to stay in on it. Very few things in the game that can even take a stab at trying to outspeed it unless they're scarfed up. And at that point, when you're forcing your opponent to scarf up, anytime you can direct someone else's team building, that's huge value added. Zero doesn't like ground types. Great Tusk can take an Earthquake if it has to. But speaking of ground weaknesses, next we come into Latias. A huge special wall. Levitate, so it's ground immune. Psychic, so it's coming in on those psychics that Great Tusk doesn't like to deal with. Great Tusk is taking on those dark types that Latias struggles with. The only thing that they both struggle with is fairy types, and that's where MVP number 2, Aegislash, comes in. It takes fairies for days. It has Great Tusk there to manage that ground weakness. It has Great Tusk there to manage that dark weakness. Latias is also taking the ground weakness for it. This team starts to have a lot of synergy when you start looking into like how the abilities and typing start to interact. Even though some of those more traditional cores that help dictate some of that aren't here as much. I will say they do have Latias, Aegislash, and Enamorous, which is a fantastic, if kind of, we've not seen it before, Dragon, Fairy, Steel. I don't know, we've really seen Enamorous shine so far in the season since it's been available. Honestly, I think Nick with it is very scary. I think he's the exact kind of person that can make Enamorous with Contrary pop off some week. It's going to get a superpower off, close combat off, and then it's going to be game over. Not to mention, all 5 mons I just mentioned are very offensive. They have a lot of power behind them. Also some bulk. Aegislash, Latias, Great Tusk, all can really take a hit. Great Tusk very physically bulky. Latias very specially bulky. Aegislash can be either, depending on what it needs to be. It's got so much inherent bulk, it doesn't have to be either, because it can just naturally take a hit and be geared towards offense. But to help with this team, outliving other things, we're bringing in Mega Tyranitar. We talked about a couple of these things having dark weaknesses. Mega Tyranitar can take knockoffs. It is not afraid of dark type moves whatsoever. Its quad fighting weakness is covered really well by Latias and Aegislash. It brings in Sandstorm, so now we're starting to wear away some of those things that maybe exist outside of Oko range for some of these guys. They're taking Sand Chip, and now all of a sudden they're in range or something, come in, click a move, and get a kill. It's got a massive attack stat. It's got, the strongest knockoff in the game. It's probably one of the strongest stone edges. It can Dragon Dance. This thing might set up 1 week, and that's just game over right there. This top 6 is really, really strong, really, really scary. I don't know if there's really one weakness that they share. There's not one hole where it's like, oh, they're all physical, or they're all special, they're all weak to water types, there's a Bolt Beam weakness. There's not really anything like that. It's just it's kind of airtight as far as the top 6 goes. If it does have trouble, I think it's when you take out a member. And I think there are going to be times where Nick can leave Zera Aura at home, and he's not really going to feel it missing. I think it can be a somewhat stable swap out for one of his other 6 mons. Or the 4 mons, excuse me. Of which I really like. They're an interesting group. We've got Milotic. This is one of my mons I used to draft all the time in the early draft seasons. I really like it. It's bulky. It can recover. I think in recent years it might have got flip turn. I'm not 100% sure on that. Yep, it got flip turn, um, which is a phenomenal thing because with it being able to pivot, that opens up a lot of things for this team. Wigglytuff, I think, is a very probably an undervalued Pokemon. It's got a huge HP stat. If it's tiered slow, it's only because offensively it can't do much right out the box. But it's got Frisk, so I mean, as I talked about earlier, pretty underrated draft ability. Knowing what the sets your opponent are running is always a huge advantage, and it can help with that. It also is normal fairy. We're talking a dragon immunity. We're talking a ghost immunity. Anything when you're packing on multiple immunities is a big advantage. We've got Quilladin. I don't know that we've really ever seen Quilladin get drafted, or if it's been drafted, it's not been used to any sort of notable effect. It does, I think, get Spiky Shield, so it can come in and protect, and now your physical attackers are getting hurt at the same time. It can set spikes, can set screens. Well, just reflect, I think, but still, it's got some small utility. It's got bulletproof, so it's immune to some common moves like Shadow Ball. And then finally, Arbok. I love Arbok. It's hard to make work, but coming from Mr. Swallow himself, I think he knows how to make a bulkier poison type work. And it's got really good abilities. It's got Shed Skin, so it can shrug off status. It's got Intimidate. Anytime you're, taking the bite out of whatever your opponent's trying to do, you can regain momentum if it has shifted away from you. Type-wise, this team looks like it has a couple weaknesses, but I think Nick's really positioned well to manage them. He's got a ground weakness across. If anything, that's maybe the thing that his, I called it air type, but top 6 struggles with is ground types, because Zeraora, Aegislash, and Megateeth are all weak to ground. But he did a really good job covering that, because you can always switch in Latias, you can always switch in Enamorus. And they, being immune, won't take damage, and you can kind of try to keep momentum. You're forcing your opponent to try to predict what you're going to do. Anytime you can force predicting, you're lowering, a certain, your opponent's side of doing the right thing. There's maybe a little bit of an ice weakness here, but I think we've also got Aegislash, we've also got Megateeth. The thing about this is, not only does he have switch-ins to his weaknesses, they're not weaknesses that are getting covered by a tier 4 that's going to come once. They're weaknesses that are covered by something top tier that's coming every week that you can reliably expect to help cover that weakness. So while the type chart shows weaknesses, I don't know that they actually inherently are, unless your opponent is outplaying you. If we go and look at stats, this team, pretty bulky, I'd say. I think, by my considerations, once you have a couple things that you get over 100 HP, you have a couple things with over 100 defense, a couple things with over 100 special defense. That's something that's really hard to break. I think we've all seen that Nick kind of likes his bulky offense. He likes a team that can come in, take a hit, switch into whatever he needs to, and then just keep on blasting. This team maybe doesn't have quite the clerical abilities that he's used in the past, so I do think Latias gets Wish. I think some of us are going to have flashbacks from Jirachi from last season passing Wishes around. Bulky Psychic Wisher, right up his alley. And when I say this team has good defenses and good SPDEF, I mean it has really good defenses and really good SPDEF because we're talking, 120 plus on multiple mons, which is really big. And then attack stat wise, like I said, in between Age Slash, well, not Age Slash, well, Age Slash and attack form, yes. Mega T-Tar, Great Tusk, Zero Aura, and Amorous. This team hits really hard physically. Spadeffa doesn't hit quite so hard, although you do have Edam in there with that 135 special attack. Gladios is 110. So it's no slouch. Speed tiers are good, not the best. But I mean, when you're marching down from 143 down to 45, there's not a ton of gaps to take advantage of. There might be something in the, like 105 that can run an adamant nature instead of something speed boosting. But I think the speed tiering is doing what it needs to. It's just not as pretty as some of the other teams are doing. If we go over to the moves, got two really good rockers in Great Tusk and Mega T-Tar, both who are willing to run rocks. Got Wigglytuff, who can do it for you too if it's coming that particular week. Spikes, you got Quilladin, so I don't expect us to see Spikes too often. Arbok's got Toxic Spikes, so I'm not going to see Toxic Spikes very often, but the options are there. Not a lot of hazard removal options, but they're two really good hazard removal options. And Rapid Spin Great Test, which it wants to do, and Defog Latios. Pivoting, this is where maybe the team's one big weakness is that it's only got 4 mons that can pivot. And one of them is Wigglytuff, which is not going to want to come very often. Latios, who can do it, but also wants to set up, and any set that also is running Baton Pass, you're running the inherent risk of, the one slip of the mind and you've accidentally forfeited the match because you passed off your stat boosts. Flipped from Milotic, I was saying, was really good. Volt switch from Zero Aura is really good, but this team has a kind of like the last team that had less pivots. It's going to potentially be forced to do a lot of hard switching. Now this team's pretty bulky, so it doesn't necessarily mind having to hard switch so much. But it doesn't have any sort of regenerate or anything like that. It's going to be relying on some wish passing, some inherent bulk. Some of these mons have moves like Drain Punch and can run leftovers to try to help manage those HP bars, but this team might have a hard time with it than some others will. Great Tusk, Zero Aura, some premier knockoff users. Got a couple low tier options as well. Thunderwave, slowing other teams down will make this team's life really easy because then it can do what it wants to, and that's just come in and click buttons. I think, like usual, Nick drafted just a crazy, crazy good team. I think this is no less scary than anything else he's ever drafted, and seeing as he's champion every other season, if not more, that should say something. Really good job. I like it a lot. I'm sure I'm going to wish it was my draft and not the one I drafted when I play you week 1. On to our next team. Next up, we have the Noctowls. I'll start off by saying this might be my favorite Noctowls team to date. I just really, personally, I like this team quite a lot. I really like the Fairy Dragon Steel. I really like the Grass Firewater Grass. I like the mons that he picked up outside of that. Like his bottom 4, I think, are all really good lower tier picks. I really love the top 5 personally. It looks like something I personally would draft. Mega Diancie, amazing mon. Probably arguably your best offensive fairy on the board, which, to be fair, we do have it tiered in tier 18, so that is acknowledged. It can set hazards. It is not just super offensive. It's got 110 defense, 110 SPDEF, so it's defensive as well if it needs to be. Um, doesn't have a quad steel weakness? Yes. Can you manage a quad steel weakness? Also, yes. Urshifu Rapid Strike, probably my favorite high tier, just on like a personal usage bit. It can flip turn, it can U-turn, it can Aqua Jet, it can Rapid Strikes, it goes through Protect. It's not like the fastest one in the world, but 97 really is no slouch in terms of speed. And things that get above that are not super numerous. It's pretty inherently bulky. I mean, 100, 160 is not at all bad bulk. Ferrothorn is one of those legacy Pokemon that's been around forever, and it's always been good. Iron Barbs, it hurts the things to switch into it. If for some reason if you were trying to work, it has anticipation. If you're worried about my opponent has Sylveon and it could be running Mystical Fire, and at which point Ferrothorn's not walling it anymore, well, you can find that out beforehand, technically, if you really want to sacrifice the Iron Barb's passive defense, or passive damage. Steel Grass is just a really good typing defensively. He picked up Moltres. Flame Body is never not good. Matches have been won and lost on Flame Bodies before. Moltres, right along with Ferrothorn, one of those legacy draft mons. We've had it forever. It's always been good. It's probably always going to be good. It's a good wall. It provides a handy ground immunity for Mega Diancie, since their grass-type Ferrothorn does not resist ground like your typical grass-type does. Ferrothorn also taking a lot of that steel coverage for Mega Diancie, along with Urshifu Rapid Strike, can take on those steals, really trying to open a hole for Mega Diancie, come and clear out on other things. Dragonite, I had it a couple seasons ago. I think it's really good. I think it's kind of underrated by our league because it doesn't get drafted super often, which is kind of surprising considering the utility it has. And I think it might be because it is, by draft league standards, kind of slow at 80, but it can Dragon Dance. It's got multi-scale, so it has, that first hit's only doing, I think it's half of what you expect or 3/4 what you expect. So it's got a built-in way to try to force that Dragon Dance up. It's got that Rocks weakness, which might be the other thing that deters a lot of people. But its move pool is really wide. It can set up. It's bulky. It brings a ground immunity. I think it's a really good pickup for this team. And I really like the Fairy, Dragon Steel, Dragonite, Mega Diancie, and Ferrothorn. I also like Urshifu, Rapid Strikes, Ferrothorn, Moltres. I like any Fairy, Dragon, Steel, and Firewater Grass that can overlap a little bit. Can press those rolls down a little, I think is usually a lot of fun. During the draft, we kind of had to talk him into this next one a little bit, but I think he also saw that was pretty dang good for his team too. But Sandy Shocks, it's an electric immunity. It has Photosynthesis, so it can get that boost with boost energy and just start blowing through. At 101, it's not the fastest, but it can become very fast. Ground Electric is great type. It's like a great type spread as far as attacking into things. Lets you hit some stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to hit with either type. It's a great pivot. It can set hazards. It just has a lot of utility for what it is. Jellicent, big old ghost water wall. Bulky water is good. Bulky water that's immune to fighting is even better. It's also immune to water types. If you're really trying to, let's say water is really not an issue, you can run Curse Body, and you might be able to take your opponent's super effective move away and then heal off because it does get recovered. I think that breaking this is going to be key some weeks against this team. If you can't break it, you're not going to win. Obstagoon was kind of a really good late pick. Dark fighting, it's immune to psychic, it's immune to, dark normal, it's immune to ghost, it's immune to psychic typings, it has moves like obstruct, it just packs a lot of utility into a lower tier mana. Gets guts, so you're on Flame Orb, but now you're setting off these huge stab, facades, facades, however you say that move. It's got Defiant, you can't intimidate it if they bring that ability. Brian made sure that Nick couldn't get swallowed by drafting it himself. Deny the king their greatest weapon. I think it's just proven over time that it's just an inherently good low tier mon. It's a nice bulky poison type. Help clear out those toxic spikes that might be bothering you. Just come in, take hits, help you pivot out into something that's a little more effective in that moment. Gets knockoff. Then the last pick was Grumpig. It's got thick fat, so it's got extra resistance that it shouldn't have to ice and fire, giving you a little more pivoting option if need be. It can set up with Nasty Plot for I think it's 1 point. It's a lot of value. If we go down to the type charts here, we'll see there's a couple weaknesses, but I think for the most part, he's got good options to deal with them, or they're very confined to the low tiers where if there's 3 weaknesses but only one of them's ever coming, you've only got 1 weakness. And the stuff that might come a little more often, there are immunities, and the immunity feels like it takes the weight off a weakness a little bit as long as you are managing it well. There is a touch of an electrical weakness, but then you have Sandy Shocks. You have Ferrothorn. The touchiest of a touch of a ground weakness, but you've also got 2 immunities to ground. And Dragonite, Ferrothorn. Now, if we look at the stat spreads, it's a reasonably bulky team. You've got 3 different Pokemon at 100 HP, which I think this team will appreciate. The ability to take a hit here and there. Defensive, nothing physically defensive. There's nothing crazy here, but it's also a team that's just kind of got inherent bulk. A lot of things sitting between 90 and 101. So it doesn't look impressive at first, but you realize that the team itself can take a physical hit reasonably well across the board for the most part. Especially defensive, it's a little more impressive. There's a little more inherent bulk sitting there. I think I also overlooked on the defensive side that Ferrothorn does have a 131 defense, so its defense is really good, actually. On the offensive side, got several huge physical attacking hammers. Got a couple things that hit really hard on the special side, too, so I think this team will be able to build towards hitting where its opponent is weaker. And I think that will make it hard to bulk up against, because if you're weaker on the physical side, if you're weaker on the special side, he's going to be able to gear his prep towards that. And speed tiers, this team's not particularly fast, but that does make the speed tiering that it does cover good. It's pretty nice and tight, good little march down from fastest to slowest. It tops out at 110 speed with Mega Diancie, so there's a lot of stuff above that. I think a lot of teams' fastest mon is probably going to be faster than this team. So that's something for Brian to look out for. It's just other teams trying to be fast and hit before they have to get hit by some of this big offense. Um, if we get into the type coverages here, or not type, like move coverage here, we've got several good hazard mons. A bulky Diancie can set up hazards. Sandy Shocks is a good hazard setter. Ferrothorn's like a premier hazard setter for spikes or rocks, whatever looks best that week. Maybe both, if there's room. You also have the kind of stealth option of toxic spikes on weeks where Swallow comes, always helpful. Moltres is like a premier defogger. Dragonite can bring it as kind of like a fourth move is open, I need something else option. Pivot on this team, several options, but it's restricted to 5 mons. But it's also, 4 of them are stuff that's probably going to come almost every week. Diancie can baton pass. Just be mindful that you're not passing any stab boosts. If you get like a Diamond Storm defense boost, don't accidentally pass that. Obscune can parting shot, or Shifu and Moltres can U-turn. They're a handy little duo to be able to do that. Sanctrox and Volt Switch. Like I said, with a couple other teams, if this team can keep the momentum, keep the Volt turn sort of vortex going, they could very easily wear down an opponent's team very quickly. Knockoff, there's not a lot of good knockoff use. Like there are members that have a good knockoff. They're not people that's coming all the time. With the exception of Ferrothorn, it just sometimes struggles to make that move slot for it. And over half the team can Thunderwave. This team can slow things down so that Urshifu Rapid, so Mega Diancie are the fastest thing on the board and are just, dropping huge hits every turn, not needing to worry about the speed tiers. I really, really, really like this team. Like I said, I think this is one of my favorite teams coming out of the Knocked Owl camp. Maybe ever, but definitely recently. That's not to say there are others that have been bad. I just really like this one. I really like all the mons that they picked for it. I know someone knocked their draft for not liking any of the mons that they drafted. I have the inverse. I really like it because of the mons they drafted. I see the synergy. I see it working really well. Good job, Brian. Good job, Knocked Owls. I think the next coach we have is Ben with the Orlando Magic Carps. Honestly, for my money, I think this is one of the best drafts of the entire draft. This top 6 could come to any match, any game, and the odds of you winning are always going to be reasonably high, 50-50 at a minimum. Celesteela, Clefable, Zygarde is just a, amazing Dragon Fairy Steel. Clef is a, all-time great in the league. For a long, long time, so is Zygarde in Gen 9. It kind of fell off just due to lack of availability for the most part, I think, and new toys to play with. But I think, especially with Ben, we're going to see it come back in a big way. We saw last season with Celesteela that it can put in a ton of work for being like a bulky Pokemon. Has a lot of opportunities to outstall or set up and then sweep a game late or clean up. It's just a phenomenal Pokemon. That Steel Flying typing can't be overrated at all. He picked up Mew, one of the most versatile Pokemon, in the format. Any move that can be learned via TM, Mew can learn. It's hard to get a bigger move pool than that. The only hard part about Mew is that usually there's a right set, but the time it takes to find it might be worth more than it's worth to actually find it. Bottom back to Clefable real quick. It doesn't look as hard to break or thick as it actually is, but with Unaware, Magic Guard, Magic Guard lets it set up with it, and you can't toxic it. You can't do any passive damage to it. Unaware lets you, I can get the +6/+6 Dragon Dance. It doesn't matter. Clefable, still base. So both of those are, incredible abilities in draft specifically. Moving to his fifth pick, we've got Iron Moth. It's one of these paradox mons. It uses a boost energy, suddenly it's set up and potentially just sweeping from there. Iron Moth has fire poison. It's a really good offensive combo and can hit a lot of the um, popular meta Pokemon. Quaquaval, I think Quaquaval. It's got Moxie. It has Aqua Step, which is a priority move that also boosts its speed. Um, and I think with as bulky as this team is, it can wear down other teams, and that's exactly where this Pokemon shines. Is when it can start picking things off, and then it boosts its speed, kills something, goes +1. Now it's +1/+1. It does it again, and now it rapidly snowballs out of control really really fast. And I think he's built the right kind of team to set it up to do that. Mega Glalie is one I don't think we've ever seen drafted, at least not in a long time to my recollection. Great stat line. It's thick. It hits hard. It's got refrigerate, so you know, uh, it's got ice type takedowns, ice type return, ice type vacade, facade. Um, and it's kind of hard to underrate when you make those moves ice instead of normal how much better they are. And his three low tiers are all super effective. They all have their niches. Miltank's got thick fat. It makes it and Sap Zipper. So we're looking at 2 added resistances or an added immunity um, to the immunity ghost it already has. Scrappy is a good ability too. Miltank is just, it is a little chunk of a Pokemon. It can take a beating and do all sorts of stuff. I think it might get Wish, so it can play that cleric role, come in, take a hit, Wish pass off to something else, and keep the team moving. Electrode, it's always just nice to have something at base speed 150. I mean, it's going to go first unless something is scarfed. Sometimes it doesn't matter if it's scarfed, it still might go first. It's got soundproof, so it is immune to some sorts of moves. It's got aftermath. You can go in. Let's say someone's sweeping, but they're low. You could sacrifice Electrode and maybe take out that last little bit of health. Static, you could potentially try to para something that's a big threat to your team. All really good added value. Lanoon Galar, it has the same utility as regular Lanoon, but with an added immunity to it, which is great. I'd be really interested if he can manage to do like a belly drum Lanoon extreme speed sort of sweep like we've seen in the days of old of the league. Although the power creep is going to be gone up so much that maybe that's not a viable option anymore. But I personally think it probably still could work. Looking at the type lineups, we've got he's got really really good type lineups. I think he's only got 2 overall weaknesses, and I think they're covered really really well by the team that he drafted to where they're kind of negated. Sure, there's a fairy weakness in Zygarde and Quaquaval, but I mean, between Iron Moth and Celesteela, is it really a weakness when he has 2 really good checks to almost always go into? And the ground, he has 1 low tier that has a ground weakness, and then it basically gets evened out between Celesteela and Iron Moth, so I'm not really worried for him for ground types. I think he's got a really good overall type coverage for this team. Looking at the stats, if you look at overall stats, they're not super impressive. Looking at speed, you could argue this is not very good speed tiering with so many things at base 100. That means their team doesn't have to do a lot. You're either there and you can't reach it, so you're going attack nature. You're faster than it, and they can't catch up, and you're going attack nature. So I mean, he's not forcing the natures on other teams quite as well as some other coaches are. But the team is not as bulky as it would appear. But if you take like the 5 or 6 that are going to come every single week, suddenly the team looks a lot thicker than it does if you look at
the stat spread of everything. Um, and some of these mons look thicker, like are thicker than they look. Like Clefable can take a lot more of a beating than you'd expect from his stat line. Mew can be geared towards whatever you need it to be. Physical attack, lots of good options here. Special attack, it's a little wanting, but then when you have something like Iron Mouth with 140, it can do a lot of the work for you. Looking at the move pools over here, we've got good hazards for this team. Mew gets everything but sticky webs. Miltank can put down rocks. Clef can put down rocks. Mega Glalie can do spikes. Iron Moth can also do toxic spikes. Not a ton of hazard removal options. You get Defog, but it doesn't necessarily want to, it's not like a premier defogger. It doesn't really want to lose the move slot. But Quaquaval doesn't mind running Rapid Spin. On weeks where Aqua Step doesn't necessarily make sense, it runs Rapid Spin to roughly the same effect and just hits a little less hard. The pivoting on this team, really, really good. Lots of good pivot options to get, getting Celesteela where you want it to trigger like a weakness policy or to take a big hit. Get Zygarde into a good position to Dragon Dance. Get Clef into Calm Mind. Get Mew to do Dragon Dance or Calm Mind or Nasty Plot or any number of crazy moves that it gets. I think this team will have a really easy time moving in the pieces it wants to. Some good knockoff users. Not amazing, but there are ones that can usually effectively get one off, which is more about all you can ask. And lots of good Thunderwave stuff, so this team can slow down those faster stuff that's beating out those tier 100s, and then once everything is at base 100 or slower, suddenly this team gets very fast. Very hard to manage. Good job, Ben. I think this is a really good team. I think it's one of my favorites of the whole spread, I think. I think you got a ton of really good value out of what you drafted. I like this one a lot. Our next team is the Mudkips. They're fairly new to our league. This is only their second or third season, I think. But man, they drafted one heck of a draft. Let me tell you, I do not look forward to playing this team if I have to. They've got some just insane weapons on here. If we look at just, the thing that mainly catches my attention is we've got Kyurem and Mega Mawile. You've got probably one of the hardest hitting fairies. You've got one of the hardest hitting dragons, one of the harder to kill dragons. You've got this, you're always playing the Sucker Punch game of Mega Mawile. It always has the option to take the first hit. Unless you've got a good bulky mon or a good resist, it is threatening to take out a big chunk with priority. With that huge power boosting up Mega Mawile stats. This is just, a really compressed Fairy Dragon Steel. Really scary. And the fact that we let them float it all the way to the very last round is kind of insane. And they've just built such a good team around this specific duo to try to let them do the things that they do best that I think some teams are really going to struggle playing these Mons without, trading sack for sack. They paired with them. They've got Landorus. Landorus has Sheer Force. This Mon's so good that in the past we have had it banned, at least banned in the way that it's not allowed to have Sheer Force because it just hits so hard. And, it covers for Kyurem and Mega Mawile. It's not a super defensive Mon, but it does. It has the resistances that really let it switch into the things that are going to try to take these guys out. It can take it's an offensive Mon that can take a hit or two, depending on the matchup, and then keep on rolling. It's got that ground immunity, so Mega Mawile is safer from those earthquakes that it does not want to take. And then for the things that Lando's not terribly bulky. Things it doesn't want to take, you have Slowking and you have Rotom. And then you got Hitmontop on top of that. Hitmontop has been MVP in our league before. It is just like a premier mid-tier fighting type. It has Intimidate if you want to play it real defensive. It's got a high Spadef for a physical Mon. It's got technician if you want to try something more offensive. It has a lot of priority punching moves. Um, Slow King is amazing for this team. Nice, especially bulky pivot. Um, it's not super physically frail either. It has regenerator, so you take a big chunk out of it, it switches out, it comes back. It's like you never did anything to it. Um, you've got it's got, and this is exceptionally important for this team in particular, is that Slow King gets chilly reception, which sets snow on the way out and pivots it. So it's a pivot, which regenerator mons love, and so do big bulky offensive mons like what he's running in this core. It also sets snow, which in this generation boosts the defense of ice type mons by 1.5. He has one of the scariest ice types in the game in Kyurem. So, I mean, that's some amazing synergy. And then going into Rotom Heat, you've got another really good pivot, something that can get Mawile and Kyurem in. It comes with Will-O-Wisp, it comes with Thunder Wave, Pain Split. It has a notable weakness to rocks, which Landorus and Slowking do not care that much about. You can get into a real Volt Turn style combo in between Slowking and Rotom, where they keep bringing in the thing you don't want. Rotom, and like I've said, I'll probably say it every single time it pops up, one of my favorite Pokemon. It can be offensive, it can be defensive, it can be a mix of the two. Bulky pivot, offensive pivot, special wall, physical wall, defense, attack. It just does everything. Brute Bonnet is in here. One of the bulkier photosynthesis mons, which this team appreciates. And like with everything else, it gets that booster energy. It can pump up whichever stat it needs. Although of all the Paradox mons, Brute Bonnet doesn't really care that much about booster energy. I think it benefits more from more traditional items like leftovers or choice band, things of that nature. Um, so the Mudkips have one of the scariest fairy dragon steel combos in their two mons that they drafted, and then they got Zoroark Izui. And now the reason that's scary is because now you have Imposter. You think whatever perfect counter you have to get yourself out of this matchup, you throw it out, it's the wrong mon. You go to throw a fighting type move at Kyurem. Well, it turns out actually it lands on Zoroark, it does nothing because it's immune, and then it hits you for something like a choice spec, Bitter Malice, or some other coverage move, and now your check to his best mons are gone. And we're all going to have to play around this all season. I think it is just really gnarly with the offensive combo of Kyurem and Mega Malwell. He has two good low tiers in Muck and Furfrou. I don't have a ton to say. Muck's a fan favorite of the league. It will help with those, like clearing toxic spikes. It can put toxic spikes of its own down. It's bulky. Can take a special hit a lot better than you'd think. Like Assault Vest Muck is absolutely a thing. Furfrou is another just surprisingly bulky low tier pick with fur coat, and it's surprisingly fast at 102. If we look at these type charts, this is our team. This is possibly the best team in terms of type coverage. It's if it's not the best, it's one of the best. No weaknesses, not a ton of neutral type matchups either. The right built team will have a resistance for whatever you're trying to throw at it, and then it's got Zoroark to make you wonder if you're actually going into the thing you think you resist. If we look at the stats for this team, very physically offensive, number of breakers on here, but also very especially offensive because it also has a couple of breakers there too. The stuff with high stats have very high stats. The speed tiers, it gets fast, and then it gets middle and gets slow. It's pretty decent on the speed tiers. Kind of walks its way right down from top to bottom. In general, I feel like I said about a lot of teams so far, our league is pretty good about speed tiers. I think
In the early seasons, way back in the day, it wasn't something we necessarily cared about until the good coaches started doing it, and then everyone else started doing it. Now, pretty much everyone does. Uh, we're all pretty good about at least trying to keep it in mind during the draft. This team is it kind of pivots. It's either very bulky or not very bulky at all. Stuff like Kiram, Brute Bonnet, Muck, Slow King, um, all pretty like bulky across the board. Everything else is a touch frail. Um, Mega Mawa maybe being the exception to that with a huge 125 defense stat. Um, and maybe Rotom as well with a 101 to 107 defense, 107 special defense. But there's nothing that like super stands out other than the couple really offensive things that I mentioned a second ago, like here on Mawile, Lando. If we look at the moves on this spread, we have Toxic Spikes and Mucks when it comes. That can be handy. It's got two. I don't know that I always want to be rockers, but two very probably consistently broad rockers in Lando and Mega Mawile. Decent clearage on hazards. Hitmontop loves to rapid spin. It's a fantastic rapid spinner. Lando can defog. I don't know that it always wants to. Rotom, every Rotom is a good defogger. Doesn't matter which one you're looking at. In terms of pivot, there's quite a number of options on here. We have 7 out of 10. I'd call that pretty dang good as far as pivots go. Especially on a team like this that has two things that it wants to just constantly be cycling in and out. Get a hit, get out. Get a hit, get out. I think this team's positioned to do that really well. A number of knockoff users. I'd say that some of them aren't amazing. Mega Mawile is one of the best. Then a couple key Thunder Waivers to help slow other teams down. Keep the offense of this team as fast as it can be within reason. It's not a particularly fast team in terms of like what is threatening on this team. And that is my thoughts on Mudkips, and we'll move on to our next coach, which is the Adam with the Pachirisu. Hanzatucky Pachirisu. I was really excited. I was talking to Adam before the draft started. I was kind of just like, what are you thinking about drafting? And at the point that he was at, he could get Chiyu and Kartana. And that is one heck of a start to a fire, water, grass core. I mean, as far as physical offense and special offense, you really can't get things that are better than Chiyu and Kartana, and to get them together is pretty massive. They complement each other really well. They have good speed tiers. The things that bother one don't necessarily bother the other, and vice versa. And then he went and paired it with Mega Slowbro, and since I haven't mentioned this up to this point, this season we no longer have to Mega on our first turn out. So Mega Slowbro is an amazing pivot. It can stay Regenerator in its base form for as long as it needs to or wants to keep the team moving around, keep getting Chiyu and Kartana in as much as possible to get off those big hits. And then once they've softened the team up enough, it can Mega get that incredible defense stat, start setting up and maybe just clearing out at that point. There are teams there's not a whole lot of teams that will not struggle with that trio, and it is one heck of a fire, water, grass. After this great start, he picked up Gudra Hizui, who is an amazing special wall. It is almost like a Chansey in my mind, except with a little less utility. It's not going to wish up or recover on you, but it takes hits just as well, and has a much better typing for it in Dragon Steel. It
Doesn't necessarily mind there being another steel type on the team because Kartana and Gudra are just so dramatically different in what they want to do. After he picked up Gudra, he picked up Cleavor. I love Cleavor personally. This mon has Stone Axe, so it doesn't have to use Stealth Rock to get rocks up. It can just start attacking, and you're setting hazards at the same time. The utility of that is kind of hard to understate. It has sharpness, so that Stone Axe is hitting even harder, along with any other cutting move you might put on it. It's got sheer force if it doesn't necessarily care about those secondary effects. Bug Rock is a fun offensive typing. After that, they picked up Regieleki, the fastest thing in the meta. It is really only held back by its narrow move pool, but I mean, its stats are 100 attack, 100 special attack, 80 HP, 200 speed. It is going to come in really handy on 1 week where Fast Electric just goes in, and there's not going to be a whole lot that particular coach can do about it. They picked up Hawlucha. Typically, this mon is more often saved for like a terrain team where it can pop a seed and really immediately unburden on switch in and hopefully just start going in. But it is still very viable on its own. Flying, fighting, very good typing. It's a ground immunity, which Chi-Yu and Kartana love because Kartana is a grass type, but it's not immune to ground. Same with Cleavor. It's a bug type that's not resistant to ground. Gudra is weak to ground. Regieleki is weak to ground, so Hawlucha being flying, fighting, really good. It can bring Limber if the unburden speed's not what we're after, and do you want to avoid the para, it can go that route too. Mold Breaker, no immunities against this, no abilities. You can get around some of the more annoying abilities. I think Adam noticed that he had a bit of a ground weakness, or at least a ground vulnerability formed up, so he also picked up Flygon. Ground Dragon with Levitate, so it's immune to ground types. I think it's a bit of a underrated Pokemon in our league, just due to being outclassed by a lot of the other dragons. The people typically trying to get a high tier dragon, Flygon just doesn't quite pack the same punch some of the high tier stuff does. But it can Dragon Dance up just like the best of them. It's firing off Earthquakes, it's firing off Outrage. Give it the right week, and it will have a window to go in on something, or at least punch a hole that will soften another team up. It's got that electric immunity for Slowbro and Hawlucha. Aromatisse, this is a fairy we don't see drafted very often. I personally am a big believer. I think my second or third best season was with Aromatisse, and I brought it way more often than I would have guessed based on its point total. It kind of has sort of two dead abilities, which makes me even more surprised on just how effective it is. It's real chonky for as low as it is. That 101 HP and 89 special defense go a lot farther than you think they would. I think it also gets Wish, so it can be helping heal up these other more important team members. And then we got Grafai, truly a almost like a mascot of the league. Definitely a mascot for the Doodlers. It's got Unburden, which I don't think I've ever seen anyone bother using on it. It's got Poison Touch, which has its niche uses. It's got Prankster, probably the ability that is by far coming the most often. Having that auto priority is just so valuable. So if you look at this team, I might stand corrected. I had said the Mudkips had the best type, but the Patrice are up there. One weakness, but only 3 neutral types. And that weakness is 4 weaknesses, 2 neutralities. That's that ground we were talking about. And I think it's a big enough weakness that it's not something that's going to get snuck up on Adam. He's going to be able to see it coming and bring the tools he needs to avoid it. Plus, although he doesn't have a lot of just natural resists,
he's got a lot of things that are very bulky and don't mind taking it. They have their recovery to heal it off. So I don't think the ground weakness is as exaggerated as this would make it look. And then it resists almost every other type. So I really like the type matchups that this team is going to have. If we bop over to the typings, this team is probably the least bulky one we've seen just by sheer HP. But it's got, once you get in the actual defense and SPDEF, it's got some very viable options to work with. Mega Slowbro has 180 defense. Kartana, for as offensive and frail as it feels, it's got 131 defense. It can take a hit. It doesn't want to take, it doesn't want to take close combat, but it can take a neutral hit. Okay, even. It can take a boosted facade. It can take a dragon claw. It can take, an earthquake. SPDEF wise, though, it's not as impressive. You have Gudra, but Gudra is carrying a lot of weight in that regard. If you bust through Gudra, it really opens a lot of things, because after that, you're looking at Chi-Yu for your SPDEF, and that's not what it's pretty much ever going to be geared towards. It's just going to have to rely on that natural 120. No one's going to be running a SPDEF nature on a Chi-Yu. Not typically, anyways. Speed stats, I am pretty happy for the most part with the speed tiering, just because it stays really fast until it gets super slow. This is another one of those teams where we start to kind of pile up around 100. But I think the speed tiering of the, let's say 8 is really good before you start mixing in the last, 2 or 3 speed tiers. Especially this team does not have, it doesn't hit I take that back. It does hit pretty good, because I forgot Mega Slowbro actually has 130 special attack. So it can, click Psychic, it can Scald, and it actually put some damage in. But also you have Chi-Yu, who's got 135. It reduces your special defense, so it's actually hitting even harder than that. I'm sure we've all seen the memes of what an overheat from Chi-Yu in the sun can do. They can do just about anything. If we skip over to moves, this team doesn't have a ton of hazards available to it. Flygon can set Stealth Rocks, and certain sets don't mind running that 4th move slot. A lot of hazards are probably going to come from Cleavor and Stone Axe. And Stone Axe is the single best rock setting move in the game, so that is not a bad thing. But I think there will be a question of how many matches can Cleavor come to where it doesn't want something else in there just for type coverage. This team probably has the most options to remove hazards, though, so the Patrice might just be looking to play a game of no hazards at all, which is an acceptable strategy in my book. We've got 5 pivots across this team. We have 6 pivots across the team. Pretty good. And the things that pivot, you have Regieleki for a very fast switch out. And alternatively, you have Slowbro for a very slow switch out, which you love to see. We have Parting Shot on Grafai. If they can find a place on a team, it's always really nice to have. Lowering both of your opponent's offensive stats before you bring something in is super good to let something set up. Bring in something that might have had a hard time switching in, and then letting it kind of go off. And then with Team of Chi-Yu and Kartana, that's really, really good. And it's Prankster on Grafai, so it's always going to go first. Some really good knockoff users in Grafai and Kartana. Kartana with that 181, it's going to be that knockoff hits really hard. Regieleki and Mega Slowbro. Regieleki doesn't have a very deep move pool, so I don't know that necessarily minds having to run Thunder Wave, and it's a very fast Thunder Wave. Slowbro can take the hits to get Thunder Waves off, and then if he's not Mega'd yet, can regen out any damage it takes while going out of the way to do that. So I think even though it's just two of them, they are going to be able to slow other teams down. It's a very fun draft. Besides my own, it's probably my favorite Firewater Grass core that anyone drafted this season. Moving on to our next coach, we have the LeChonk, coached by Chris. This seems very fun. I know they picked up a few Mons that they've always been trying to get. Notably, I know they've been trying to get their hands on Zarude for a while now. So I was really excited to see them get their hands on that. But if we just start off and see what we got here. Latios, Premier Mon, arguably, I mean, maybe even have it under tiered at 17. You ask me, it's one of the best dragons in the format. It's fast, it hits really hard, it's got pivot, it's got setup, it's got levitate, so it's bringing immunity that's outside of its typing. There's just so much value packed in this one thing. And I think it's a really interesting core that they built around it in Aggron and Togekiss. Togekiss is a Mon that used to be, back in the early teen seasons before that, I feel like one of our premier Mons to draft. And it kind of fell out of vogue as it had less availability in the games and other more powerful fairies in the meta kind of ramped up. So I'm excited to see it back. I think they're going to do a really good job with it. Serene Grace, I think people forget how much of a headache it can be with air slash and flinching. Mega Aggron is a Mon that I had in my very first season ever when we did a random draft at the time. You used RNG to figure out what Mon from what tier you got. And I happened to pull Mega Aggron. Haven't touched it ever since, but it does have some enormous bulk, and Filter is a very helpful ability to help with the longevity of this Mon, and I think it's going to serve Chris really well. I think they are the kind of coach who can take the advantage of the enhanced bulk there to really kind of get one up on their opponent. So that's just the fairy Dragon Steel. Getting into their next pick, Landorus Sarian is again another like S-class draft tier Mon. Intimidate, electric immunity, ground immunity, really bulky, hits really hard. It has an attack stat of 145, which you have to think is kind of like up there in like top 10, top 20 Mons you can even draft, regardless of whether they're banned or not. And to pair up all of that, they picked up Toxapex. Toxapex, it's really kind of like an all-star draft in terms of just what we know, consistency, what these Mons can do, how they perform. They picked up a lot of Mons that we know work. We know if you draft them, they are going to perform. Toxapex will wall somebody. Someone will not be able to break it. It will get, Baneful Bunker up and poison someone's best offensive check to it, and it's going to slowly die before Toxapex can. Toxapex now, I don't believe has pivot. I could be wrong. The move pools could be updated, but if it doesn't, thank God, because that would make it just over the top. After all that, they picked up Blaziken, who we do allow speed boost now. So the right set could get the better of somebody, just if it's the perfect coverage, the perfect set of 4 moves. If they get a Swords Dance up, and now they, double attack, who knows what their speed is at that point, and they can just start punching holes in other teams. I think people have to be really mindful of Blaziken. I think it doesn't necessarily stand out in people's minds in its base versus Mega, that the base is still actually really scary. Firefighting offensively is an amazing type. To round out their Firewater Grass core, they picked up Zarude, like I mentioned earlier. Huge knockoff.
with a 120 attack, 105 speed. It's fast. It gets a really good U-turn. Leaf Guard's a good ability. I don't actually know what it does. I can only guess. That Grass Dark is really good offensively. It's good defensively too. With 105 HP and 105 defense and 95 SPDF, this mon's pretty bulky. I think Toxapex Blaziken Zarude is like a offensive fire, water, grass with a defensive pivot is fun. I think Chris is going to be able to do a lot with it. And the bottom three, Armaldo, I honestly don't know much about it. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I don't think it's all that amazing either. I think it's a pretty decent pick from the low tiers from what you have to choose from. It's got, it's got 125 attack, 100 defense, decent bulk. I think it's going to do a good job of coming in and smacking something that I think it might get disregarded by some coaches and be able to sneak in a surprising amount of effort 1 week. Electros, if ever there were a mascot for a team who doesn't use it as a mascot, Electros is the mascot for Chris. They draft it pretty regularly. It's electric with levitate. It has no weaknesses. It can bulk up. It can coil. It is a good pivot. There's just a lot of value in this mon, and I think Chris would be the first to tell you that. And then with their last point, they drafted Bastiodon. This mon, I think a couple people have tried to make it work in league history, and I don't think anyone has yet. I do think there is something there to work with. It's got a couple quad weaknesses, but it does have 168 defense and 138 SPDF. So in the right matchup, especially in something like draft where you can plan for your opponent, if you can force the matchups that it does eat hits really well, it might be a very effective pivot, especially when paired with Toxapex, as long as you can deal with that ground weakness, which Togekiss and Landorus and Latios and Electros do just fine. And you can kind of see that if we get down here and look at the type chart. Just like Adam, it's 3 neutrals and 1 weakness. It's a little unusual to see, I think, a water weakness in draft just because of how many types interact with each other. But when you have Toxapex, I really don't think they have that much to worry about. Latios resist it. So you got 2 mons that are coming that pretty much always resist it. I expect to see Zarude frequently, and it can soak up a Scald or something like that. That one needs to be a little more careful because you don't want it to get burned. But other than that, I think it's got 1 weakness, and I think it mostly lies in the 2 bottom tiers, because I think in the top 8 that we're more likely to see, there's plenty of switch-ins into water types that really don't mind taking the hit. So while there is a weakness, I wouldn't really call it that once you really dig into what the typings and Pokemon interactions on this team are. Their team, excuse me. If you look at stat spreads, not a lot of teams have 100 plus averages on multiple stats, and they have 3 stats that are way up there in the high averages. It's not a particularly bulky team in terms of HP. Zarude is up there, but nothing is a huge HP pool that you have to break your way through. But you have stuff like Mega Aggron that has 230 defense. You have Toxapex, who has 152. You have Bastiodon, who has 168. You have to break. Quick Henry pause there. You have to break through these huge defensive damage reductions before you can ever really worry about getting through their HP pools, because it's not going to go super quick. The SPDF side is pretty much the same sort of problem. You got 110 SPDF on Latios, 115 on Togekiss, 142 on Toxapex, 138 on Bastiodon. It's going to be hard to break them just because of
how high those defensive stats are, even if some of the move pool or some of the HP pools are not huge. Attack wise, is one of the places where this team is just absolutely bonkers. You've got Zarude with 120. You've got Lando with 145. You've got Blaziken with 120. You've got Mega Aggron with 140. You've got Electros with 115. Armaldo 125. That's over half the team with just absolutely sky high attack stats. Everything on this team can click a stab move and it's going to do decent damage unless you're hitting into a bulky resist. Special attack stats are not as sky high, but it's fairly well spread. You got 130 with Laddie, 105 with Lando, 110 with Blaziken, 120 with Toga. Electros has 105. The only problem there is you're going to see some each week they are going to have to pick which way it's going to go. It's not, they have 6 sky high physical attackers and 6 sky high special attackers. There's actually a lot of mons here that are like split and are really good at both. So they're going to have to pick, which is not just a problem for them, it's also a problem for their opponents because they have to predict what they're going to do. And that's never easy. It always adds more variables, team building. And like I've said before, the more variables you can add to team building, the I think better off your draft is. The harder you are to prep for, the better. Now, if we get into the moves, plenty of rockers on this team, plenty of viable rockers at that. Plenty of these do not care about bringing that stealth rock 4th move slot. Toxic Spikes on Toxapex. Toxapex has a lot of ways to poison other Pokemon, so it doesn't necessarily need to bring Toxic Spikes, but it doesn't mind bringing it either. Again, this is one of those teams that has defoggers for days. If they want to keep hazards off and just play it that way, they absolutely can. Armaldo has Rapid Spin. I missed that. Maybe there's some of that hidden value in that guy. There are a ton of pivots. 5. But it's like 5 that could come every single week, which is, it's 6. 6 that could come like every single week. And I can't overstate it enough that pivot accessibility can make or break a match. Hard switching, you're losing momentum, you're taking damage probably, or your opponent is setting up and you're not getting anything out of the exchange. If you can at least take that little chip of HP, if you can lower that stat, set that snow, if you get something on your end out of the switch, it'll always be better than if you don't get anything. Something is infinitely better than nothing. Pretty much the whole team, it feels like, can do knockoff. Zarude's one of the better knockoffs in the game. In terms of like utility, Lando and Toxic Pex are also really good knockoff users, even though they're not putting up big numbers when they do it. A lot of really good Thunder Wavers. Mega Aggron kind of feeling like an unexpected Thunder Waver. Might catch someone off guard one week. Overall, I like the team. I really do. Probably kind of in the upper half of the drafts for me this time around. I think Chris did a good job. They put together a really solid team. I think it will play to their strengths as they go into this season. Good job, and we'll move on to the next team. Our next team is the Clef Keys. They drafted the core that I wanted to draft last season, so I'm very excited to see what they do with it in Lele and Sneasler. I really like that combo. It's very offensive. Lele sets terrain. It stops party moves. So it's not going to get bullet punched or anything like that. And then Sneasler is one of the best unburden users in the meta. Once it pops off, really, it's not getting outsped by almost anything. You have your niche like Scarf Electrode, Scarf Regieleki that maybe get up there, but realistically, it's not speeding everything once it gets that unburden boost. And then if it doesn't want to go unburden, it has Poison Touch, which is, while not as good, a pretty helpful secondary ability. Anytime you can spread hazards without having to actively use a turn to spread hazards is great. To pair with this very offensive combo, because I mean, these guys can sweep. They are great breakers. They can soften a team up really well. And he paired that with Tyranitar and Excadrill. T-Tar, super bulky, even more bulky once it sets sand. One of the premier knockoff users in the league. It can set up with Dragon Dance. It can set rocks. It can be a bulky wall. It can be a bulky offense. And that brought with it Excadrill, who is in sand, one of like the legacy mons of the league. It's known that it can and will sweep in sand if given, even the tiniest bit of leeway. If we get the Swords Dance up, if you don't have something very thick that both resists and can super effectively attack it, you could be in a lot of trouble. Um, it's got Mold Breaker, so your Levitate mons aren't safe. Your Rotom, best mon in the league, won't be safe from an Excadrill. And speaking of Rotom being the best mon in the league, that's what he picked up in his 5th slot. Electric Water, Rotom Wash is arguably the best of all the Rotoms. It's got that ground immunity. It has all the utility in the world. It's got Wisp, it's got Thunder Wave, it's got Pain Split. It's got weird coverage like Draining Kiss for your quad fairy weeks. It can do Nasty Plot, and now all of a sudden you've got these big nasty Thunderbolt and Hydro Pumps coming. It is just an excellent bulky pivot where you can just Volt Switch around and get either those breakers in or try to set up that mid to late game sand sweep. I think it's just a very good addition to this team. But as those 5 stand, they're not defensively oriented. They're bulky, but not defensively oriented. So they picked up Tangrowth, where the one thing it does is defense. It's a regenerator. You take a chunk out of it. It switches out. It's almost like you never did anything unless you're putting up enough damage. You get stuff like Leech Seed. It gets stuff like Knockoff. It can just be a very annoying thing to have to break so that you can actually make some progress against this team. It throws down a Leech Seed, switches out. Now you're healing up the thing that comes in. If it's something bulky like Tyranitar, now it's getting that harder to break. It's a really good 6 pickup for this team. It really helps with the type coverage too. Next up is Armarouge. It is not a mon we've really seen much of. I believe it's Fire Psychic. It's got its own signature move and Armor Cannon. We haven't really seen what it can do in draft yet, although I do think it really can pop off in the hands of the right coach, and I do think the Clef Keys could be the right team for that. And it's got a fire immunity and flash fire. It can get fast with weak armor, where take the hit, has a defensive drop, but speed boosts. Licky, nice thick wish passer. It doesn't care about weather with Cloud 9. Can't be confused with own tempo. It doesn't do a ton of things. It pretty much wishes, it knocks off. It comes in as hard to break quickly. Altaria is kind of a classic low points defensive hazard clearer. It's kind of like a hard switch pivot. It's just good value down there. Flying, its typing is good. And then they drafted Dedenne, which, while sort of a meme pick, is also it's a fairy type. It's electric. It can do Nuzzle. It can play some weird games of fairies with Cheek Pouch. It's fast. It's all I really know about it, to be honest. Now, if we get down into the type coverage, they did a pretty good job here. It's really just kind of fighting a ground weakness. Kind of all throughout the team, and I think that's something that they're going to have to be mindful of. Sneasler, Excadrill, T-Tar, Armarouge, and Dedenne all don't like
ground types. That said, Rotom Wash is one of your best ground type counters in the game. And Tangrowth can take a hit and heal it off. Altaria is immune. So there are tools here to address kind of that one big weakness. And then across the board and everything else, did a great job of keeping it at a minimum neutral, if not resisted across the team's types. If we get into the stat block here, this team is reasonably bulky. There's a number of things over 100 HP. Now, in terms of defenses, it's not quite like some other teams where it's like half the team is over 100 defense or special defense. But there are definitely some like dedicated. This month's my wall. It's going to come in and take the hits for everything else. That's the plan. Some stuff is low stuff like Tyranitar at the 100s. Spadef becomes, I think, 150 as long as it has sand up. So it's going to maybe tank some hits that you weren't expecting it to if you're not being mindful of that. And it's not really a mod you want to still be standing if you thought it was going to die, because it's going to hit back with that 134 attack and it's going to hurt. And then Excadrill has the 135 attack, so if he gets sand up and it gets fast, it could really start to put some hurt on a lot of teams. Ground Steel has a lot of types that it can hit into. You've got that 130 Tapu Lele. It's a tier 18 for a reason. It really packs a punch. It has a pretty decent move pool. Armor is 125. I really think this is a mon due to how little we've used it as a group. Could definitely get somebody by surprise just due to being underestimated, being an unknown factor in our league. Speed tiers, it's not the fastest team. Only 2 things above 100, only 3 things above 90. Everything else is kind of right in there from 80 to 50. They're probably good enough for the mods that they're attached to try to force some nature selection. But that realistic gap from 95 to 120, I think, might be felt on this team. You have a lot of things that said like 108, 109, 110 that are just going to pick their most offensive nature, and they're just going to have to play around that. That said, Sneasler might be able to afford to come adamant more often than expected, as if you can bank on people slowing down a little bit because they can't outspeed Sneasler. But unfortunately, the way I tend that finds to work out is that just means that Sneasler has to play the nature guessing game where the stuff that's a little bit slower doesn't. So that could be a little tough for the Cluckies just in team building as which direction they want to go. Then as we get into the the move pulls here, not a lot of hazard setters, but they're all in Premier Mons that are coming every single week that really don't mind clicking Stealth Rock. Like T-Tar will set Stealth Rock any week, every week. Toxic Spike on Sneasler, a little more niche. This team is really good about clearing hazards. While there's not a lot of hazard clearers, they're Premier Mons that really like to click those moves. They're not fighting for a 4th move slot. Rotom likes Defog, Altaria likes Defog, Excadrill, Rapid Spin is like a part of most of its kits. This team doesn't have a ton of pivot options. Rotom is going to be putting in a lot of work. It's thankful that it does have a fast U-turn in Sneasler, so Sneasler at least can get itself out, try to do some damage on the way out, and switch into something that may just handles the matchup better. Dendene, when it does come, can Volt Switch, which it can U-turn, whichever one looks better that week, which is helpful. Anytime a Volt Switch mod can get U-turn, that's always helpful, because if you're going up against the ground resist, it's not shut down. And then knockoff users, there's not a ton, but due to their bulk, Tangrowth and Licky Licky are good ones because they don't mind using the 4th move slot. And T-Tar is a great knockoff user. It does not mind bringing that dark coverage, and it just hits really hard coming off of T-Tar with the stab and the 134 attack. Rotom,
can do Thunderwave, Tyranitar can do Thunderwave. Depending on the set you bring that week, it might not mind having that fourth Moonsault used up by it. This team, I do think, does appreciate slowing other teams down. Earlier I mentioned Sand for Excadrill. I talked about the other one for a little bit, but weak armor on Armors can also speed it up, so it's not. It can become deceptively fast really quick if you're planning for it to be, in a certain speed tier most of the game match. This is a fun team. I am very curious to see how they do with it. Good job, Lefties. Our next team is the Houston Haxorus. This team, just at first glance, looks very fun. And I mean, that's what we're here to do. We're here to have fun. So let's just dig into it a little bit. We've got Double Dragons. We've got slightly more defensive Cyclozar that's more meant to come in, regen off a hit, maybe drop a Draco, run away. Come in, rapid spin, run away. Keep taking hits and healing them back off, pivoting into something that is better for that matchup. It also is not necessarily as much offensively. We've seen like a banded Cyclozar actually put in like a ton of work in the past on a few rare occasions. And then I'd say the premier dragon of this team is Baxcalibur. Huge attack stat, interesting abilities, thermal exchange, either makes it resist or immune to fire, which is always good on an ice type, even if it is an ice type that it takes it neutrally. It's got Ice Body. It has its own special dragon move, I think Dragon Glaive, that you just, if it gets a dance up or so, where it gets real fast, it just keeps hitting Glaive and then you win. It's simple as that. It is a mon that we have seen put in work consistently since it hit the scene on this most recent gen. And although it doesn't have a ton of seasons on its belt, it has been very consistent when it has come. That got paired up with Slowking Galar, one of the oddly premier snow setters of the league. After your mons like Abomasnow and Alola Ninetales that set it off just inherently by switching in. Slowking likes to pivot with Chilly Reception, which sets snow for it. It's got Regenerator, so it can come in, take a hit, Chilly Reception out, into say Baxcalibur, and then heal off some of the damage it just took, so it can do that more consistently, can do it throughout the match. That Poison Psychic typing can be hard to break. It's just a very good wall. It's something we've seen be frustrating for multiple coaches for multiple seasons. To pair off with both of those and start working on our Fairy Dragon Steel Core, we got Jirachi. Jirachi last season was a menace, wish passing. It's another psychic type, but I don't think that's an inherent issue with this team so far. Serene Grace, I think it's very easy to forget how a move that really plays around with RNG is just super frustrating to have to deal with on your opponent's side. You always have to worry about, well, I couldn't figure out a good build for Jirachi this week, so it's Scar, Fire, and Head. We're just going to see how many flinches we can get in a row. And there will be a week where that can win a match all on its own if luck is looking down on you that day. To close out our Fairy Dragon Steel Court, Ian picked up Grimmsnarl. Premier Pivot, Premier Screen Setter, Premier Hazard, Giver. Dark Fairy is a phenomenal typing. It comes with that Psychic immunity. It comes with that Dragon immunity. It's got Prankster, so it's doing all these different utility moves at a higher priority. Typically going first. Nothing like a guaranteed goes first parting shot or screens. It's got Frisk if for some reason Prankster isn't doing it for you that week. You can see what your opponent's running, which is a very handy option. It's got good attack stat. I think the Haxorus have kind of preached the concept of banded Grimmsnarl before. that you just come in and start clicking moves, and it's got the attack stat to make that a viable option. Maybe someone else, but for some reason I associate the Haxorus with it. The Cephalon, we saw this thing be a menace last season. It's got Beast Boost, which means it can snowball out of control. It already hits so hard. Ghost Fire is just a phenomenal offensive typing. It hits into so many types. 107 speed, so it's not slow by any means. 127 attack, 151 special attack. And then we get into Vigavolt. And one thing I seem to notice with every mod on this team is they all seem to have a reason for being here. They've got some sort of purpose they can serve. Vigavolt is a ground immunity. It has sticky webs, notoriously. And while it maybe is not the most I want to quick sticky web user available, it also is one that doesn't necessarily mind giving up that fourth move slot. It's got that 145 special attack. So, I mean, the Bug Buzz is coming off of this. The Volt switches, the Thunderbolts, the discharges, they're going to hit really hard. And if you don't have the resists that they're in front of it, you might be looking at, just to get out of having to deal with it, you're going to maybe sack something or let something take a much bigger hit than you were intending to. It's a mon that's easy to kind of overlook in prep and then just get absolutely obliterated by in the actual match. Their next pick is something that's kind of going to live in infamy in our league a little bit. Conkeldurr, it hits so hard. It's got guts, it's got sheer force, and all its abilities make it hit even harder on top of that 140 attack stat, and then every ability it has boosts the damage on top of that. This mon has had an interesting history in our league where it used to be one of our top tiers because of the potential behind those stats with those abilities. The speed has always been a limiting factor. That's kind of, I think, pushed coaches to drafting other fighting types. But now, for where it's at, it's really good value for how much the Haxorus had to spend to get it. It's one of those mons that we can't let drift too low because it's too good. But also, if we let it drift up too high, it just never gets drafted. So I'm really excited to see that it did end up on the Haxorus this season. It gets to see the light of day once again. Then the low tiers, we have Arctovish and Thwacky. We'll start with Thwacky because I know it better. You got your Grassy Glide setter. Then you're looking at, or not your Grassy Glide setter, your Grassy Terrain setter and Grassy Surge, which then lets you use Grassy Glide. It comes in, it uses priority to help clean up if need be. It has Eviolite, so it's thicker than it should be. Pretty sure it gets knockoff. It gets U-turn, so it might just come in, set terrain, switch right back out. And then the other pick they had was Arctovish. This is primarily, I think, drafted as a Slush Rush user to pair off with Baxcalibur and Glow King and their kind of mini snow option. It's also got Water Absorb, so it's I think Water Ice type that's immune to water. It also has Ice Body like Baxcalibur. It's a mon that I don't know a lot about. I know it's a bit slower, but also pretty thick. It's got 90, 190. So I mean, especially in snow where its defenses are getting boosted, it's pretty hard to break. Everyone loves a good bulky water. Obviously, ice typing opens it up a little bit, but bulky water is bulky water. If we get down into the type chart, this team is not quite so, neatly wrapped up as all the other teams are. But also, if we look at where some of those weaknesses are sitting, you're seeing it down with Thwacky and Arctovish. And you don't want to hold what they are bringing against the rest of the team. There's a bit of a ghost weakness here in between Slowking, Galar, Jirachi, and Blacephalon. One nice thing is that where Cyclozar comes in, it's a normal type. It can switch in incredibly safely. Grimmsnarl's a dark type that can switch in. That this team is going to handle the defenses just fine for the most part. Offense, we've got Grimmsnarl at 120, Blacephalon at 127 attack, and Conkeldurr at 140. A couple options that hit here really hard. Special attack, you've got Visual at 145, Blacephalon at 151. Oh, I missed that 145 attack on Baxcalibur. The breakers on this team, I think, are always going to be threats. And you only get to bring 6 Mons. If 2 or 3 of them are sitting, with 140, 150 attack plus attack stats, you're breaking holes. Like half your team is a breaker, even if it doesn't necessarily prescribe the full 11. So again, I think this team is set pretty well to do well. I think it might take a little more coach mindfulness than maybe some of the other teams will, but I do like what they have here. I think anytime there's a small weather gimmick or anything, it requires a little more, It's not so click and point as some other teams can be. But honestly, I think it might be, this team looks fun to pilot, and I think the Hacksmiths will have fun piloting it this season. Going over and looking at the move pools, hazard-wise, not a ton of hazard setting, but it's 2 very consistent, very doable hazard setters. Slowking can absolutely make room for toxic spikes. Jirachi can 100% make room for stealth rocks any week that they want to come. Vikavolt has that sticky webs option like we talked about. Defog, this team has a very odd defog option in Conkeldurr. I don't know that it always wants to use it, but I also think people will forget that it has it. And then a very consistent rapid spinner in Cyclozar. Five out of 10 Mons can pivot. I think this team really appreciates pivoting, so I think that's good. A lot of the pivoting is in the mid to high tiers where they're going to come pretty consistently, which is much better than if they were confined all down to low tiers where you lose half your pivoting each week. Knockoff, lots of fun knockoff users on this team. No Tyranitar, they're going to blow holes in our teams with knockoff, but you've got your Grookey, your Cyclozar. Conkeldurr might actually blow a hole in something. And then Blacephalon, which actually hits a lot harder. There's just no stab. And lots of good Thunderwave setters. Because I did accidentally skip over speed. Thunderwave setter is Sticky Web is going to be, I think, big for this team because it's not a fast team. You've got 121 with Cyclozar, 100 with Jirachi, and 107 with Blacephalon, but then you drop down to A7 and you drop pretty quick into the slow Mons after that. So I do think this team will appreciate slowing other more offensive teams down. Now there's a lot of power locked in those slower things, so you might not need to. If you just click, it doesn't matter. Take a hit. If you click and something dies, as long as you can take the hit to get your move off, it doesn't really matter. I really like this team Hackers. I think it looks fun to play, which that's all we can really ask for on any given season. I do hope out Eldegoss and Dottler, it's a neutral instead of a weakness. So I think overall they did a really good job of managing those typing matchups on this team. If we look at our stat blocks, not a particularly bulky team. You do have Florges kind of carrying the Spadef side with that 154 Spadef. Eldegoss, when it comes, it does have 120. But defense-wise, you've just got Gliscor. And neither of them have big HP pools. That said, Gliscor heals stuff up the whole time. It's got a very defensive typing and ground flying. There's a reason Landorus is so good. And if Gliscor and Florges are coming every week, and you're building an offense around them, you might not feel that lack of bulk elsewhere as bad if they can keep coming in, take a hit, pivot out, because both these ones do get pivot.
options. They both get baton pass. Gliscor also gets U-turn. On the attacking side, Ogerpon's probably going to be your main damage dealer physically, although Infernape and Samurott both can put up hits. They have over 100 attack. On the special side, there's a lot more options. Goldingo and Glamora both can put up big hits. Infernape has that kind of switch hitter option. Samurott does too, but I don't really see it ever coming as a special attack. And Florges does have 102 special attack, although it's usually going to come very specially defensive oriented, I would imagine. But the things that it does have to give offense are good options. There are typings that have good options to come in and hit a lot of different things. So I think positioning is going to be big for this team to make sure that the things that they want to take hits are the things that are getting hit, and the things that they need to be attacking or like get them out in the matchups they need to be out for. Speed wise on this team, I think they did a really good job on their speed tiers. The last two things are really slow, but then when your slowest thing's 75 and it's a nice clean march down to the 75, this team, speed tiers are going to do what they need to do. Now, if we get into the move pools, lots of hazards on this team. We've got spikes, rocks, and toxic spikes. Glamora and Gliscor are going to be happy to set hazards every single week. You have options in Infernape and Ogerpon if they have an extra move pool that week to be that person. You got Sticky Webs and Dottler. You've got Neuburn and Gliscor and Florges who can all defog. At least one of them should have room for it every week. Eldegoss and Rapid Spin when it does come. Six pivots on this team. That's nice. This team wants to pivot around to get the right things and the right matchups. Decent amount of light screen users, a few reflect users, knockoff. Several good knockoffs here. Ogerpon, Infernape, Gliscor, Samurott, they all are good knockoff users. Only Goldingo on the Thunderwave. This team might have trouble slowing other teams down, but Goldingo also is a very good Thunderwaver, just based on the matchups it can get with it. This team, like I said, my brain gets a little confused looking at it right away because I don't know that it is your like a traditional team per se. But I do think all the pieces are here for the Ogerpon to pilot their way to a good season. I think they're just going to have to be really mindful of their positioning, make sure that they're forcing the matchups that they want to happen. If someone else can set the momentum, I do think this team could get broken down quick enough that it could be hard to manage across the whole match. But I'm really excited to see what the Ogerpon do this season. With that, that's all the coaches. I think everyone did really good. I don't think there's a bad draft among the batch. I think different teams have some different strengths. Some teams might have it a little bit easier than others in terms of like, I just have sense something, click a button, and I am still winning matches. But it's kind of one of those scales. It's like on this side we have great, and on this side we have pretty good. So I mean, the differences are small and subtle. But fortunately, I don't think there's any draft here that needs like a major overhaul. There's not a draft where it's like I have no clue what the plan was. I don't see it. I don't see how it's going to succeed. I think all these teams have very good win cons. They have fun options. They have fun utility. I think as a group, we have just really come together and kind of brought up the knowledge base. And now I think a lot of people, even our newer coaches now, are putting together like killer teams. I think as a community, we've come together really well, helping our newer coaches, helping each other. Just build the most solid, fun drafts we can so that we have, competitive, fun season following the draft. Although, no, I think there's more than one person who's probably like, let's start the next draft now. That was fun. Uh, but really good job, everybody. This has been my who knows how long of rambling at this point. Have a great season, everybody. I hope everyone has fun. As always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Ever want to do some talk through some team building or talk over trade? Always open hearing it out. Bye, everybody.